Welcome, Vibe Tribe. It's good to see all my favorite people here in the chat. It's been 2 weeks since we did a Vibe Rant, and I've missed y'all. I've really missed y'all, and particularly missed this crew right here, the AstroHerbalism crew. And as you can see, I got a brand new background, some bookshelves, and everything is going awesome in life. Been having some life quests that prevented me from doing the stream for a couple weeks, and we'll be taking a break next week as well. But it's tied everyone over. We've got, everyone's favorite series returning for, I think, the 15th installment. So we've managed to squeeze a lot more life out of it than just 12 zodiac signs. AstroHerbalism. It's party time. What's up, Michelle and Mario? Good to see you guys. Welcome. Oh, got you muted, buddy. There we go.
Oh. Are we here?
We're good.
Hear us right now?
Okay, check.
Mic okay, check, we're good.
See 1, 2, 3. Okay.
All right.
Our internet's so slow. We apologize. This is always a thing. We're happy to be here. Kyle's awesome. Chance is awesome. Your community's awesome.
Yes. Thank you for having us. We're pumped to be here. Excited to hear about the medicine of the world tree and what Kyle's cooking up. So let's go.
Yeah, Mario couldn't miss that one, right?
No
I
way.
know. Yeah, exactly.
Kyle, how have you been, man? Did you survive all the Wisconsin tornadoes last night?
Yeah, dude. Gemini is like brings in the holy gust. It just like the season started and this wind just came in and it's been something. It's been really windy today, but yeah, of course. Look at me. Today I did a little switcheroony with my wife. She took my job and I took hers. So I just got to play outside with my son all day and I'm just doing great, man. And I'm totally stoked for this topic. You asked me a while back if I had something to bring, and I said, well, actually, I've just been thinking about this class that I'm presenting for a conference in Colorado this summer called the Good Medicine Confluence, and it's with the same title, Medicine of the World Tree. So this will be a little teaser for that conference. I don't want to spill all the beans for anybody who wants to come down. But I also was telling Mario and Michelle in the back, like, let's just spill all the beans, plant some new seeds, and whatever we can harvest from this, I'll be presenting to this this class in Colorado. So I'm really stoked for that too. And I get to do a couple other classes too, including astroaromatics. So it's a course on incense and zodiacal signs. And then I'm going to do another one on vitalism and refutation of the germ and everything like that in our herbalism space. And I think that's going to be an important issue for a lot of people still on the fence about that type of thing. But this topic right here has been pulling at my heart for a long time. I've been researching it for a long time. As an herbalist, I've always been like into the stuff on the ground and looking around at my feet. And once I started getting into Mario's work, it's been really inspirational to me. And then the words that you say, Chance, is about healing your worldview is a deeper form of healing yourself. And of course, then when you heal yourself, you're healing all in your worldview. You're also healing externally too, right? So with the medicine, when like looking at the symbolism of the world tree and looking at trees now, and really shifting my focus to finding more medicine in a cosmological view. And that's basically the inspiration for this topic today. It's been a really, really big one for me. And I love talking about it. And I also love you guys. And I love your chat. And I love all the gym minions out there that are hanging out today. Happy season, y'all. And so I'm totally stoked to get into it. I hope Gabe can join us.
I think he'll be here in a few minutes, it looks like.
Cool.
Yeah, I wrapped my Gemini wife's birthday presents today. Happy birthday on Sunday, darling. Really excited to give you your stuff. And
she's
Kyle,
good at keeping secrets, or she's good at waiting for him?
Yeah, she wouldn't mind if I told her, I think, but she could go either way, mutable.
I would not be. Yeah, I would not.
Where can people find this conference online so that they can get tickets or find out more information that you're doing?
I actually got 2 tickets that I need to sell at a very discounted rate in order to kind of help pay for my stuff. So if you're interested in going, hit me up on Instagram or on my website or something like that. But it's the Good Medicine Confluence. And it's awesome. Like one of the things about this conference that makes me really excited about it is that it's kind of a bunch of herbal misfits. It's a bunch of people that don't really fit in with the paradigm of the political herbal theater as it's become and as it was revealed in 2020. And so a lot of people that have always been on the outskirts, really pushing the boundary of herbalism as an art and holding the boundary of it as a folk practice in these times. And so that's basically the mission of this conference. It's in Durango. It's in the mountains. It's in July 10th through the 13th. I'm really excited. Sage Popham, your bro, he's going to be there. I'm excited to meet him. Phoenix Aurelius, some other really awesome herbalists and speakers as well. So, yeah.
Man, it's cool to see the online world able to bring this alchemical wisdom to more people more readily. It's like I came into doing AstroHerbalism with you guys knowing basically nothing about it. And now after talking to Katie Hess and Sage Popham and all the conversations I've had with y'all, I feel like I'm starting to get my head wrapped around the whole herbalism thing. I'm like, I'm an intellectual herbalist, maybe not practicing. I'm using other people's concoctions, but it teaches you so much about life to learn about the most prolific form of life, which is the plant kingdom.
Totally. Yeah. It's, you could be an armchair herbalist, but it's really easy to practice because it's a very forgiving art. It's easy to make mistakes and correct them. And it's not very easy to harm people. So, yeah.
So do you want to pull up some slides, or Michelle and Mario want to make some comments before we dive into the presentation side of things?
I mean, I'm ready to giddy up. So, yeah.
Right on. Yeah, sounds good with me. And I realized how much I learned from that series too, by the way, just want to say. And I've seen the playlist, or I saw some of our videos a while back on YouTube, and I'm like, wow, that's actually quite the collection, especially if you're just starting your journey. There's a lot of good information in there, so people should definitely check that out if they haven't.
Yeah, I added it to the drop-down links in the content section of my website, a link to the playlist, and put it on the front page too, because I don't want that stuff to get lost over time. It is ageless, timeless wisdom. It will be applicable every time we come back around to Gemini season or Taurus season. Jen's been revisiting them to make clips as we get into the next zodiac sign. I'm sure she's stoked to watch the Gemini one since she is one.
That's right. Yeah, I definitely saw that. And also, just to say, to have someone like Kyle talk about herbalism in this context too is also just like a huge win, because to me, that's how I grasp the information when it's woven and we're exploring these different symbolic themes and everything else. So definitely a good time.
Yeah, I agree.
Nice.
If we think about the zodiac as the wheel, it's spinning around, there's the solar aspect. What we're focusing on here is the axis, that central pillar Mario talks about a lot, the central axis. And not only what it is represented as a stone, as Mount Meru, fractally, from Polaris down to the center of the earth, fractally into the way that society is set up and into even the home and even into our own body, right, with our spine. And having the zodiac as like a backdrop or as a stage, as settings to observe, the seasons as they go by, or the scenes as they go by, but always remaining kind of firm. And then those symbols as they pertain throughout the different cultures and as they've been emblematically assigned with the medicinal trees that there are. This slide right here is a picture in Grange, Ireland. There's a stone circle there. And that is, what's up, Slick Dissident in the house? That's a hawthorn tree growing through one of the stones in the stone circle. So this is I mean, I was like, this is a great representation of what I was just talking about. We have a circle, we have the zodiac, we have your central pillar, we have the things which everything is kind of gathered around, and then your central staff, the hawthorn tree being one of many examples of world trees, medicinal trees. When I say world tree, I could say tree of life. I could also say tree of knowledge. And I'm basically talking about that representation of that single point of stillness. And in this particular example here, this hawthorn tree, I mean, hawthorns are like, come on, those are like so magical. They're fairy trees. They got these big old thorns. They have this one right here is called a fairy tree too. So the thorn actually is a symbol in the garden of Eden spaces. Like it's something that you can poke yourself on, and you're on your own now. You're out of the garden. Cause and reaction have occurred. There's a symbol with that with the thorn as well. It's a symbol of protection. It's a symbol of boundaries. When all of those white flowers turn into fruit, they'll be red little tiny apples basically. And that is great heart medicine. I mean, this is, to me, the way that this tree looks spread. It looks like the toroid. It's the same root structure below as it is above. It's got this stalk, this short little trunk, and this is a great representation of the world tree.
Nice. And for the sake of the presentation, would you like us to comment throughout or hold our thoughts until the end, or what are you thinking?
No, I think let's just riff on some of these slides, I guess. Like one of the things that I was thinking about with this slide or just the trees in general, and is, how do you relate to the medicine, and how do you relate to the symbolism, to the access, and to the myths that come up, especially with things like hawthorn, fairies, fae folk, medicine of the heart. And if you have any thoughts on that, I guess that's for the presentation. Let's just I think that would be pretty cool to just riff on that.
Nice. Right on. Well, I was just going to say something about the stone. I love this. That's so cool that you found this.
Yeah, that's what my thoughts too. I'm like, dude, it's the dual symbolism.
Totally. And there's some other images. I saw a sneak peek, right, of the presentation, and I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. That's really cool. But about the stone, one of the things I've picked up over time is that it seems as though the stone, like many world axis symbols, they represent the point of pivot, that immutable center, like dot in the center, in the middle of the wheel, if you will. But it also represents the totality of everything as well. So the stone represents that point of pivot in the middle, but it also represented the cosmos itself. So I think that's a really interesting thing to think about. And the world tree is about, it's essentially the same thing. It's the point in the middle, it's the axle of that wheel, but it's also the totality of the whole entire system itself. So the word Beth, I believe in Hebrew, means house, and it means house of God. And I think that this really relates to like the Kaaba cube. The Kaaba cube is kind of synonymous with this whole entire thing. It's really a symbolic central stone. And that Kaaba cube represents the totality of the cosmos, but it's also that point of pivot, which is why people go to Mecca and then they go around the Kaaba cube, right, 7 times. And so that was just one thing I wanted to point out regarding the stone and stone symbolism, how basic it is, but how it really is a reference to that middle point, but then also everything.
Yeah, when we're talking about the world tree, there's corresponding symbolism with the sacred mountain at the center of the world. There's even like the ark or the cosmic egg. Those are all similar. You're gonna, connect to the same vein of ideas. The ark being the ship, or the ark like, Pandora's box. Thinking about that word bet is interesting as well, because if you think of the word bet with the B and D switch in philology, you're also considering like the Bud or bud, which trees have buds. Buddha is the cosmic Brahma archetype as well. So really anything that is depicting like a symbol of the origin of creation or the regeneration of creation after destruction, or like the order out of chaos, could be a world tree type of idea. And yeah, this is just a phenomenal image that is growing out of the stone. So you have the world mountain and the world tree, kind of, nature showing us that it's a similar idea. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, and then also tone being within the word stone. To me, that blows my mind too. And you guys probably have all sorts of things to say about that. But I think of the world stone being that central mountain, also being the world tone as well.
And one of the things about the older versions of paganism or the mystery tradition, I'll read a quote from George Faber, old book called Pagan Idols, or Origin of Pagan Idolatry. I don't like his, he was kind of churchian, right? And he was calling everything idolatry. He had some good points, but he does a good job of the syncretism side of it. And he talks about how all the goddesses of paganism will be found ultimately to melt together into a single person who is at once acknowledged to be the great mother and the earth, yet that person is also declared to have assumed the form of a ship when the mighty waters of the vast deep universally prevailed, to have peculiarly presided over navigation, to have sprung from the sea, and yet to have been born from that sacred mountain whence flowed the holy rivers of paradise, to have contained within her womb all those hero gods who are literally said to have sailed in each ark, to have been in some remarkable manner connected with the dove and the rainbow, or to have had a ship for her special representative. And there's a lot of stuff in that quote that's important, like the goddesses being the earth or the world, but also being the tree, like the world tree is the world. And these goddesses like Isis, for example, and there's many different versions of the great mother goddess or Athena is an example too, who teach the art of shipbuilding and sailing. And who really teaches you to build a ship better than a tree? Because you build the ship out of the tree. You find the right wood that is suitable for that task, even if it's just a raft. I mean, the very first thing that's going to allow you to cross a body of water is a tree itself. So the tree is teaching the art of shipbuilding. And the tree is the origin of the hero gods as well, like Mira, the mother of Adonis, who takes the form of a tree and then drops a seed that goes into the underworld and springs into the beautiful solar deity Adonis, who, by the way, is the Old Testament god as well. They call him Adonai. So, it's really interesting to consider the idea of a world tree because it breaks the entire cosmology of materialism, and you have to get a different philosophical ground to even wrap your head around the idea of a world tree. But I brought this up when I was talking to Katie Hess, how the idea of a world tree isn't like, some mystical tree that's floating in space and we're all like on it or something, or it's a multidimensional tree. Yeah, all of that might have some kind of relevance to our bigger picture, but the key is to understand the innate connectedness of all things, that a blade of grass, a tree, a shrub, a human being, a raccoon, none of these things are separate, individuated entities in the big picture. Each tree that you see in the world is actually a branch or a twig growing off of the bigger tree, which is the earth itself. And that goes for all life forms. That's why everything has this synchronicity and connectedness to it, because what affects one, what goes into one branch or one leaf of the tree is not at all separate. It's connected to and is affecting the entire rest of the tree. So that cosmology of the world tree, understanding it as meaning that we're all literally growing off of the same thing. The grass is just like the hair of this goddess, for example. It's just a much more wholesome, holistic worldview, regardless of how literally true you need it to be. I see the earth as alive. I see the earth as the deity. I don't personally put a separation between the creation and the creator. This, from everything I can observe with my senses, it's the world itself that is doing the creating, right? And we're parts of that world. we're sub-creators in this larger creation. And church dogma has done a lot to make that seem like a very heretical idea or evil idea, that you need your creator to be something outside of the creation. And I don't rule out the possibility of something outside of our closed system, that planted this tree in a larger garden on some fractal dimension of scale way beyond our comprehension. Sure. But within this system, the whole thing is creating. The whole thing is generating life, and the whole thing seems to be eternal and infinite within our own perspective of it. So that's some of the stuff the World Tree makes me think about, and I love this topic. And I can't wait to talk about the medicine correspondences and the doctrine of signatures with all that.
Right on. Yeah. And the point is to know your neighbor, to know your the rock on the end of the driveway, to know the grass that's growing up between the rocks on the end of the driveway. Those can seem like separate parts, but we go towards the center. We're moving towards the center, towards the trunk, and recognizing that it is actually all connected above, connected with a trunk, and below as well.
Let's call on good old Slick Dissident. We might have a little delay here, bud. Get in here, buddy.
Right on. Thank you, buddy. Great to see everybody. Much love and respect to the audience. I'm so excited to be back with my buds on the herb walk. Let's just start with placenta. Let's start with placenta and the fact that the world stage is rooted on a location that is an anagram for placenta. Palestine. Very important topic for generations to come. These events rotating around a central location. We're doing, CNN is the Kabbalah News Network. And we're going to be walking around the subject for maybe 7 rotations. And I want to also mention that we're definitely hitting on September and the Hermit card. And there's a saying, I forget who it is, might be Pythagoras, who says that a stone is but music that has stopped. And so the tone in the semitone, the S and the T of music is embedded in the word stone. So we got one S-T. S-T-O-N-E is one S-T. And so that's tone and semitone. Those are the ingredients that you need to make music right there in the word stone. It all unpacks. You turn it over and everything you needed, everything you were looking for was right there. And then one more thing about the set. A lot of this unpacks from the fact that Socrates in reverse is Set Arcos. He is the number 7 archon, but he also encodes music because of that throne on the 7 position. And Cancer actually has the constellation Argos, but Set built his Arcos out of rock, out of stone, or he built a boat out of stone so that it would sink. And funny enough, even though Argo is in Cancer, this card is September, which is an earth element. So the boat of September, where the Deccan is located, sinks down into the temple of the earth-based element of the summer, which is this Hermit card. I've had to answer this to myself recently. The fact that the Argo is in Cancer, but it's located, it's migrated, it's sunk down into the earth element of this Virgo card. And then, of course, we have the egg of Phanes. And I just want to highlight the bunny rabbit. Can you guys see the bunny rabbit? Just give me a thumbs up if you see the profile of a bunny rabbit. That's the eyeball. That's the eyeball. And these are the whiskers of a profile of a bunny rabbit. And are you guys seeing it as well? Yeah? Cool. So yeah, we just passed up the year of the rabbit. And a lot of JFK stuff has to do with the rabbit, with his birthday. But now we're on to the dragon. And the dragon is Hydra, which is also this little snake around the egg. And Hydra is included in Virgo. It's an intrinsic part of Virgo. And it encodes literacy in general. the word Hydra is a schizophrenic anagram for gram or writing, all things written, because when you write in cursive, you're leaving a little serpent of knowledge behind. Okay, I'll shut up.
I got to weave real
Presentation
quick.
again, because we're never gonna get through this thing, and your trial run here is gonna last forever. There's so much good stuff here. Oh my god, I want to expand on a lot of things Slick mentioned and all of that, but you should proceed and obviously move on with
Proceed.
the slides here.
The hawthorn was brought to the Celtic islands by Joseph of Arimathea. So there's your Pythagorean hermit, the arithmetic, the father that left the the Holy Land. But yeah, we can move on.
I even think Joseph of Arimathea astrologically or astrotheologically is in that vicinity of Cancer as well. I have notes on that. I'm going to look that up. I just want to remember. But yeah, here we go. And back to the slides. This is a big can of worms in and of itself right here.
Right. Yeah. Because when we talk about the world tree, we got to identify the anatomy of what we're talking about, not just the canopy, but also the roots and the trunk. You've already did a great job of describing how all of us practice the only belief system there is, and that is for all of us to be a leaf on this tree. Right. One of the things that I think is really interesting and really fun in exploration of the world tree and what it represents through all these cultures is a greater cosmological view of, the identity and the what this place really is, what it's like. So over here on the left, there's this dual toroidal magnetic electromagnetic composition, which we could overlap, which Chance and I both identify on biofield tuning clients. We see that still soft channel that moves down the Sushumna and then empties out above the top of the head and down at the base of the feet. And then energy, that's our memory, our mind, our consciousness, that's all around. And inside of that is what composes our physical body. And the same could be said on a fractal scale, macro, all the way up to the nature of this realm, that we are just pieces of the hologram of this map right here. So on that map, we have there's the middle earth, the middle channel, which is the ground that we would stand on looking up at the tree. Up above would be heaven, the canopy, which is where we typically would send a lot of our prayers. Down below in the underworld is, or the other world, we could also call it. That's where the beings of nature exist. That's lit by its own light of nature. It's not dark and hell-like. If you've ever done any shamanic journeying, you can go. The way that I do it is that I go into a hollow stump of a tree, and I go down into the other world, and I ask for guidance from the plant spirits. And so that has more of a etheric based hangout, as opposed to the upper realms where you're in, the heaven. It's all tied together though. It's all tied together as far as the cosmology is concerned, and as above and is the same as below. So it's really worth noting the composition right away.
I got a nice anagram for everybody. Paradise in the Garden of Eden is an anagram for dragon deep inside earth. EARF, earth, deep inside the earth.
Love it.
I love that, man. I like the toroidal, like the polar nature of understanding the fractal of life. You alluded to biofield tuning. The very first thing I do in tuning sessions is find where the person's poles are at. Because I'm maybe not so into the idea of pole shift on the physical planet, but there is such a thing as energetic pole shift for people in their personal field. So the fact that that exists makes me wonder if that can happen on our world. I'm not sure. Or maybe it's just a symbolic language that the body intelligence helps me understand what's going on with the person because I'm looking for it in that way. So I'm not making any claims that it's even literally true that their axis gets shifted, but I do find people's what we would call the sun star and the earth star, the points above the head and below the feet, before every session or at the beginning of every session, and click and drag those so that they're centered with the physical spine. And that alone tells me more about what their, what the theme of this tuning is going to be about than any question I could ask them going in. More and more lately, I try just not to ask any questions and just go for it. But for example, like just the most recent client, just by checking out where those were at, they were in front left and front right. So they were shifted to the front and below and the above were shifted to the front and to the left. And that tells me basically I can't take on anymore. I'm full. That's the no more, please. I'm full type of vibe. And then the intuitive hit comes in through that. And in any way, the way you're aligned is super relevant. I'll just leave it at that because I could go on. And this, I'm getting off base.
Yeah. One of the things I could add here is that I've been looking into these different figures that could be considered, savage, bestial, kind of wild man archetypal characters. And so I think the Fool card is really kind of an updated interpretation of this. And so a lot of these figures tend to be travelers, and they straddle domains, they straddle worlds. And I think one of the things that's kind of implied is that they straddle realms, both new and old. And so their wisdom and even their lifestyle and their perspective comes from a different age. And so like the Green Man, as an example, he oftentimes is holding a tree or he's holding a staff. The Hermit, he's holding a staff all the time. I think Saint John the Baptist, he's another example of this, right? He wears camel fur and he has a beard and long hair and things like that, but he's always carrying either a staff or a really, really long cross, basically. And so,
and you have a lot of spears too.
Spears
instead of staffs.
Exactly right. And I really think it goes back to pretty much what Kyle's laying out here. It's a world axis sort of implication, and the pole is so simple and basic that it really is a primordial symbol. And to me, that's what this is, pretty much what we're talking about here is just the underlying unity of essentially everything. That is like the heart of the primordial tradition, this older tradition, that everything has this unifying sort of origin, this unifying sort of root. And the world tree is such a great example of explaining a lot of this stuff because it shows that everything really is interconnected. But as I see that the middle of that torus field there, I just thought I would bring that up. The staff, the pole, the wand, the phallus, the pillar, the column, the spear, as you just mentioned, I would say the sword, all of these different things relate to the world axis. But with these traveling figures, you'll notice that this is always the thing. And the older Fool cards, even sometimes the Fool is carrying two poles. Generally, today we see him carrying that pole with his bag, which I just learned. This is a hobo term, but it's called a bindle, when you have that pole with that sack at the end of it. But that's a reference to some of this stuff, in my opinion. It's so ancient and old and kind of primordial that it's really easy to overlook the significance of the staff, right? But that is like the main object that these figures will hold. And even jesters and clowns and things like that will oftentimes have a sort of wand, even with like a little clown head at the end of it or whatever. But this is something that you'll see, throughout history, is this wand staff sort of thing. And I think it just goes back to a lot of this stuff.
And to add to the wild man thought, this is what's coming to me is looking at the wild woman archetype too, and looking at a broom. and the broomstick being representative of the pole, but then also the bristles being the feminine side, and having that duality. And when I look at this toroidal field, the red and the blue, that is what comes to my mind. And so it represents both. So you have the wild man, you have the wild woman, and their staff is in between, is holding them up. And then what comes to mind is just like mother, child, father, when I look at the world tree. Even though they're all together as one, but there's some element that comes through. And to me, it would be the mother at the roots, the child as the trunk, and then the father as the canopy, being like that protector or the provider, or just the protection that is there. And then the mother being the creator, who is underground, kind of the stability, the stable energy that holds that tree up. And that child, the trunk, being a representation of both. So that's just what's flowing right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then tree relates to 3 as well.
Right.
You know, so there's all of that for sure. And then even the canopy above would be like heaven. And there's definitely a correspondence, an older correspondence, right, where it's a male sort of not dominated, but there's a male correspondence with heaven and a feminine correspondence with earth and the dirt and all that kind of stuff. So
right. And then hell in Norse mythology is guarded by a woman, and so there's that whole aspect of it as too, which would go along with that.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to highlight this comment from Booty Yoga, the great Booty Yoga here in the chat. He says, "Wherever you go, there you are, as if you were on a treadmill." And to help people understand why, like, the symbolism of the world tree corresponds to the symbolism of the ark, that when the ship, or the Argo Navis, is tossed adrift on the waters of chaos, the flood has brought disillusion to the physical material world. That is similar to the idea of a tree, because the tree is rooted in place and it is still. The world moves around it. And the ship on the waters of chaos, all of that chaotic water is undifferentiated. So it doesn't matter where the ship goes, it's still in the same exact spot in the middle of the vast, void or undifferentiated, wild chaos. And in my life, I've had a couple of transcendental experiences, you could call it, where my consciousness shifted, or my frequency raised, or whatever you want to call it. And I had the sense that I was no longer moving around, and that my thoughts were causing the world to move around me, as if it was all like a screen and I was still, even though my physical body was like going somewhere or doing something. And the truth is, all of the events of life are happening on through the medium of our mind. And like the tree, we're not actually ever moving. You never move out of your mind or anywhere in your mind. It all moves around you. You're this central pillar at all times. And we get our perception so outwardly focused and identified with what's on the screen that we feel like we're in it and we're moving around in space, and that there isn't really a center. But the truth is, you are the center. You never can't be the center. It's all moving around you. And our material 3D realm and coordinates on a map and all of that are just a framework for us to program our reality through a type of language to summon the experiences that we wish to have, or the resources that we wish to tap into. I hope that all makes sense. But like, you're really, you are this tree. You're really not actually moving. You're just this central column, and all of the chaos of mind and the changes of the outer world are moving around you. And it can help to realize that no matter where you are, what's going on, you're exactly this rooted, infinite tree of consciousness that cannot be shaken, and it cannot be destroyed, and it will eternally exist, and it never didn't exist. Does that all make sense?
Yes, absolutely. It does make sense. It makes sense to me now. I don't know if I would have agreed wholeheartedly a handful of years ago, but I totally get it. And it relates back to that analogy with the stone. And so that is to say that this central point, the supreme point that is the ultimate unifying middle of this place, there is no second thing of that. There's only one. Everything else is just a reflection of that point. And so there's only one original point, and all other points in space are just a mirror of that point. And so so that central point is both the middle of this space, but also symbolic of the totality of everything as well. And so you are that center. Absolutely.
Nailed it. Okay, we better give it back to Kyle. You want to go to the next slide? You want to say more about all the stuff we just got into?
No, let's go to the next slide. This sucker is, let's go. Yeah. Nice. There's Mercury. All right. So we had the pole. We can't talk about a pole without talking about the messenger, without the mercurial aspect, Gemini. I really find Mercury symbolism in trees in general. Of course, here's the maple tree. Just yesterday, I was looking up at the sky, and I saw one of these helicopters come flying down, and it looked like it was about to land on me, and just the wind picked it back up and took it away. And there wasn't a maple tree around me for 50 yards. So that sucker flew away. Whenever you see signatures like that, that is the sign of breaking away from the garden, and in order to experience the independence, right? Flying away. And also knowing that that the seed contains the morphogenic pattern that will become the same exact thing as the tree that it left, the garden that it left, and it has the potential in it encoded to always return. But anyway, there's Mercury. Mercury is the messenger. He's going to go up to the canopy, to heaven, and he's going to bring that information back down. Sometimes it's a squirrel that goes whoop, 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 whoop. If your dog ever chases a squirrel, it'll always be on the other side of the tree, right? It just does that twirly. Then it goes up to the top and it throws all the seeds back down so that those seeds can go germinate in the underworld. There's the caduceus staff, which I think is really symbolic of not only the serpents that are also associated with the world tree, but also this whirling nature. And if you look at trees, if you just ever stand next to an old tree, you'll also find that it has this spinning quality to it. It's always moving. So yeah, there's Mercury. It goes between that inertial plane up to the canopy, down below, carrying all this information. And one thing I just wanted to just riff on with this maple tree is, and maple in general is like the May pole. It's the pole of Beltane. It's the botanical name of maple is acer, which is the same word as acer, which is the same word as this is where you get icy. Chance taught me this. Dionysus. It's all connected to acer. Caesar. Those are all examples of this personification of the godlike, of the structure of that central rulership and messenger.
Yeah, it's the Etruscan word for God. Acer, Icer. Yep. Yeah, it's a good word.
And this is so cool how the helicopters spin out. It looks like it's all over the place, but as you could see, it just follows that central axis, mimicking the tree that it fell off of, the vortex spinning that the pressure out to the side and the underside, and giving it some lift as if it were a wing that was engineered by NASA. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got for. That was a little joke, but that's all. Yeah,
that's great, man. I love that. I love what you included here. This imagery of it falling and it spinning. For a second, it just took me a quick moment to realize, I'm like, what is going on here? And I'm like, oh snap, it's actually just falling. And yeah, you have that axis right there. That's beautiful. One thing I just want to point out with Mercury too is that generally, like in this pose, but it's covered up a little bit, but he is like on his tippy toes, and then he has one finger up to the sky, right? So he is actually emulating the axis. So he's emulating the point of pivot itself. And so this is what ballerinas do. So when they're spinning around, or the whirling dervishes, they're emulating the axis. They're emulating that spin. He's emulating the spin of the serpents going up that caduceus too. So that's very, very deliberate, and it looks like he's spinning on a black stone there, a central stone, Rupus Negra. So the lodestone, which has a correspondence with the lodestar, which is the pole star, the central star in the heavens. So just thought I would throw that out there.
Yeah, serpents. Serpents are, you get the serpents in the book of Genesis. You got serpents at the base of Yggdrasil. And if you look at certain trees, just the roots of them look like a den of snakes. So I don't think it was, I think it's, it's very easy to understand why the serpent symbolism would be reflected in the pattern of the tree itself, but also in the mythology of the serpents and what they represent. Wisdom, all the things that serpents represent, right? Wisdom, they move up from the Kundalini and into, they don't go all the way to the top because the top is inhabited by another creature, but they go up to the third eye, in the nadis, the two main nadis, the Ida and the Pingala, and of course the serpent in the Garden of Eden. I'm really interested. I just put this in here because I really wanted to hear Mario riff on serpents.
Nice. Yeah, one of the things I was going to say about this regarding the serpent is that it really has the same sort of idea related to it as the stone that I brought up, the central stone, but then it being the totality of everything. So the serpent wrapping up that central axis, but then also sometimes being depicted as wrapping itself around the totality of everything, of the cosmos, right? And so the serpent too, to me, kind of being like a cord, and it relates to this idea of the world axis actually being like a cord or like a line, like the plumb line in Freemasonry. The plumb line, it's been acknowledged multiple times that the plumb line represents the world axis in Freemasonry, right? And so this idea of a chain that connects worlds, or a bridge that connects worlds, a golden cord or golden thread that connects the above and the below. And I think the serpent really represents that too. It's just a symbolic sort of connection between all that is above and all that is below. And clearly, when you see illustrations like that with the serpent wrapped around the world tree, to me, it makes a lot of sense.
And besides the Jormungandr serpent of Norse mythology, there's also the concept of Nithog. I think they anglicanize it as Nidhogg, but it's Nithog. And that's this sort of serpent dragon creature that gnaws on the roots of the world tree. And it's connected to the idea of like sin. This is the idea of, I think the word nith or neath has to do with loss of honor or being like a villain of sorts. So there's this concept that what goes under the earth, or what sinks, what has density, it also nourishes and protects what grows up out of the world. And I like that concept because it's sort of a roundabout way of understanding that even like the sin or evil of the world is a type of fuel for the good and the blooming of life. And so you can consider that Nithog serpent chewing on the roots of the world tree as a protector of the world tree. In the Norse mythology, it was a protector of the world tree, even though it has this association of being kind of like devilish or related to evil in some way or dangerous. And that's, I think, a really important concept to keep in mind, that if you are this world tree, then even the evil that befalls you in life, or that seems out of your control, or that which kind of pulls you lower or causes you to sink, it also has a nourishing aspect to your roots, to your longevity, to your blooming. Winter happens so that we can have spring and summer, and so that there can be new life. I think that's always important to consider with the eternality of the tree as a concept.
Right. Yes, exactly. I'm glad you brought up protection, because that is such a huge aspect to the serpent and dragon symbolism and things like that, is they are guarding something precious. And in my estimation, a lot of these myths of what they're guarding has to do with the center. It has to do with secrets related to the center. Know thyself and you'll know the universe. And every temple has like a sacred center, right? The Holy of Holies. And so the serpent guarding the center is something that you'll find, guarding treasure, guarding gems, or whatever it might be. And you see this played out in the northern sky with Draco going around the pole star. And so I think there's a relationship there with the world axis and Draco, and at least some of the symbolism being attached to what you see up there. This northern serpent going around that central axis.
And then if you go back to like Ophite Gnosticism or the early versions of Christianity that are labeled by the church as heretical and called Ophites, they talk about the serpent in Genesis being the emblem of the creator or being Jesus, because instead of it being evil, right? Because by persuading Eve to eat the apple, he was the cause of the propagation of the species. And without the opening of the eyes or, exciting the desire to procreate, we would have never multiplied. And without, metaphorically speaking, and without that influence, then we wouldn't be wise, because we would be unprolific in our innocent ignorance. So the serpent put in motion the generative power for humanity, but also was that at the same time the cause of death or the destruction of man, apparent destruction, his decomposition or return to dust. So basically, if death was not brought into the world, the multiplication aspect of men wouldn't work. And then there's all the cobra symbolism with like Eastern religions, Buddha having the cobra hood, and then the Egyptian. I could go on and on. I probably should just stop there, but the serpent thing runs deep.
Yeah, man. Yeah, let me magnify what you laid out. Let me Trismegistus that mofo. Let's magnify it. Wisdom is understanding. It happened when they got undressed and ding, undressed and ding. This was the understanding. This was sinking feeling. This is undress, sting. It's the sting of getting undressed in the fall when the leaves fall off the trees. Now you're naked, and if you walk outside, it stings a little. This is a birth ritual. This is why you get undressed, and they stick you with the ink, and you get stuck into the ink. All of this is multiplying your understanding of what the word understanding meant in the first place. So all of these anagrams are the wisdom of Athena. This is the wisdom of Athena. And it is that what was one linear word that had only one meaning, that only sends you in one direction, you can go against the flow of order and get back to the garden. It's all in the anagrams. All right.
You're not wrong. That's all right on the money.
And back to the garden, I would say back to the center. And the argument has been made that modern man and this fall from grace, the fall of man, is literally man removing themselves from that symbolic center, not acknowledging that symbolic center, not having a relationship with that center, which connects you with all of the other centers, the center of earth and the center of heaven, in my opinion. So it really, to me, the center symbolism and the world tree, really, they cannot be removed from each other. They're synonymous. They're truly one and the same.
Gonna shout out Liam Anderson for the €10 super chat. Thank you, buddy, for being one of the 1% that does 90% of the supporting. Appreciate you so much. That's really generous, man. Thank you. Glad you're here. Even though it's like 1 a.m. No, it's like 2 a.m. and you're here in the UK. I appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah, raptors, they're a higher order maybe of the maybe an evolutionary, like even the word raptor in the dinosaur words that they try to sell us. We're talking about birds of prey that are wait, let me start over here. How about this? In the constellation of Ophiuchus, which stands as a intersection and a gateway between the zodiac and everything moving around, and then bringing it all up to the pole star. It's almost like it like pops the sky into this dome, into this three-dimensional dome. And Ophiuchus has got that serpent wrapped around him. He's the serpent bearer. Some depictions of Ophiuchus, though, are not just the serpent, but they're also angels. These angels, Archangel Michael with the sword, slaughtering Satan, who's got the Scorpio underneath his feet. So serpents and raptors to me are one and the same in terms of wisdom bearers, protectors of the parts of the tree that they have. One of the things that I think is really cool about things like eagles and hawks, and they have these giant nests that are up in these trees. They look like a bunch of roots. It has that fractal look of roots that are up in the tree. So the raptors maintaining the higher order of the serpents maintaining the lower order, or let's just say the underworldly order of the raptors. Of course, in a lot of mythology, Zeus is connected with eagles. Many, big wingspan birds are connected with the gods of the thunder, or the gods of the above part of the tree. And I was just reminded about there was like a tree up north that had a big, huge eagle's nest in it, and a tornado came and knocked it over. This is like one of the biggest trees in Douglas County in Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin, and it knocked over this eagle's nest. And then they went there the next day to see the fallout, and it was just like 30 some dog collars and cat collars and something like that. So it just reminds me of like the predatory aspect of the wisdom of vision, and how it's just recycling things back, but it's nourishing itself, nourishing its young as well. But yeah, raptors. I'm wearing my raptor shirt too, by the way. This is an eagle shirt. Eagles. It's got a stone. It's got an American flag.
America. Awesome.
I missed the first part, but the whole dynamic with Scorpio representing a scorpion, a serpent, and then also an eagle. So there's that interesting dynamic and relationship there between the eagle and the serpent itself.
And with the wheel of the year, it's subjective where you would start. What's the actual beginning? And with precession of the equinoxes, if that really occurs, then that subjectivity shifts even further. But I find it interesting in correspondence to the I Ching that the very first hexagram, the creative, which is the heaven and heaven trigrams together, represents just the pure yang force of creative energy, is associated and corresponds to Scorpio. So in a way, like that energy that creates everything, that goes to the deepest depths and soars to the highest heights, that's the roots of the tree and the branches of the tree, all in that concept of Scorpio, which wasn't always just the scorpion as we're talking about. It was this eagle symbol. Interesting.
Yeah, real quick, Mount Meru, classic, map that everybody's probably seen. This is a great representation of. It's described as a river, four rivers moving away from the center. That can be four directions: north, south, east, and west. That can also be the fontanelles, the fountain of ancients, and then the fontanelles that are in the head itself, and then the spine being the center, that Mount Meru. And this is a depiction of the center of the world, or where the North Pole is in old maps. And that would be that central point that would go up to Polaris, that would be corresponded with the world tree. a mountain maybe that actually might be there. Who knows? It's a magnetic pole that all of our compasses align to. In any case, it's also symbolically referenced in our own biology as well.
Right, and there's several myths too about eagles leaving that central mountain as well, or having some sort of relationship or correspondence with that central mountain, like in India. So there's an eagle that basically takes the nectar of the gods from the central mountain and then leaves with it, and then drops several of these, droplets of nectar, around India. And so those places are considered to be holy locations. And so I know there's a few more out there as well, but there's that really interesting dynamic with the eagle and the mountain. And one of the things I've been thinking about lately too is the pyramid basically being a symbolic mountain. I think that these pyramids had other functions, but clearly they look like mountains. And pyramid symbolism, to me, aligns a lot with, like Zeus and other gods that would be considered kings or emperors or whatever. You even have Ram right there in pyramid. And it's my understanding that pyramid is more of a modern sort of name for it as well. And that my sort of recent research has been kind of leading me towards the idea that the pyramid was basically viewed as a pillar. And so the pillar of Enoch, right, is like the Great Pyramid in Egypt. And so the pillar and the pyramid are also synonymous in a lot of ways, in that the central mountain was also viewed as holding up the firmament, or being that central sort of pillar that holds up the night sky. I think this kind of interfaces with Atlas as well, holding up the heavens, basically. And so there's a lot to be said about all of that stuff. The mountain, the pyramid, kings and emperors, eagles, etc., the world axis.
What also corresponds to this bird raptor symbolism in a way. I mean, and they're not, a dove isn't a raptor, right? But there's the crucified, apotheosized emperors, or they're not always crucified, right? But when an emperor of the Roman mythology was said to have died, that their spirit would fly away in the form of a dove. Or when Semiramis or Helen or other goddess figures were killed, often by crucifixion in some of the stories, their spirit flies away in the form of a dove. And on the ark, whenever it's time to find land, he sends out a bird. He sends out different kinds of birds, but it's the dove that comes back. And thinking about this on a medicinal side, this is medicine of the world tree. I'm sure we're going to get to the medicine pretty soon, but this is how AstroHerbalism works, right? We got to build up the whole symbolic framework first. But I'm wondering, with the mountain and the bird idea, because we're just on the raptors, like what correspondence to medicine does the raptor hold? Is it the thing that can circulate through your whole system and like go out and find something, or find the dry land internally? I don't know. I'm looking forward to how, if there's is it adaptogenic mushrooms, that are able to seek where they're needed and find that spot in your body. I'm really curious about how the medicine of the world tree is going to blow our minds coming up. And I also want to give a big shout out again to another super chatter, Yvonne Renee. She said she came in burned out on every level, and she knew InnerVerse would charge her up. That's right. That's what we're here for. We're here to raise the vibe. This is the Vibe Rant. I'm happy to hear that. Looks like we got something from Gabe too. Kick it over to you, buddy.
Right on. Thank you. So just this week, it was brought to my attention with a certain amount of focus that the Samekh, Samekh, is the letter for S. It's on the art card. And it's often, it means a prop or a tent pole that is propping up the center of of when things get intense. I think what happens here, there's a lot of strange maxims and metaphors, but let's think of like que bono, who's to blame, who built this space, who has property rights here? Who's benefiting? Who set this up? And the answer will be the artist, whoever the artist is. And so if you want to frame something in the right context, you look to who the artist was who set the whole thing up in the first place. This is phenomenal, this little linguistical trick, because from my assessment, the muses are the props. The muses are where the art comes from, really. And that's a mystical nugget that leads way off in left field. But I just wanted to bring the samek and the prop of lifting up and creating a sacred space. I want to give it proper placement here in the conversation because that art, it was the culprit for the shutdown. They got us. They got us with a piece of art. It was just an artistic expression. So yeah, art can be real dangerous in its proper use.
Well, and that samek is the sound the serpent makes. It has the numerical equivalent of 60, which is sexty, 6 and sex, the hex of sex. And the idea of like a prop, it, you know, samek, it can also mean like leaning on or being supported on the prop or the staff. And what's more of a staff serpent symbolism than, you know, Moses turning his rod into a snake as a miracle? That's really interesting.
That was a great weave, dude. Slick. That right on point. I love that, the property stuff and prop and everything. And I don't know if that was a pun or if you're intending to do the wordplay with intense, but a tent having that central pole, right? You know, and then the tent literally being a micro of the macro, basically having that world axis there. And there are groups that actually perform rituals in tents, and they acknowledge that central pole in the tent as the world axis itself, as the navel of the heavens, as the navel of the universe. Basically, another correspondence there regarding the art card and the prop would actually be the arrow, because the art card corresponds with Sagittarius. And so the arrow is known for being another world axis symbol as well. So it all just kind of comes around full circle. But that was fantastic, dude.
Oh.
Get it, Michelle.
Oh, sorry. I was kind of thinking of there's a few things coming to my mind now. So the arrow and the hunter. I have a few thoughts about the hunter, the eagle, what eagle medicine might be. But before I get to that, I wanted to bring some runes into the weave because they come through strong for me, and they always come through strong with the world tree. But in terms of the rune for the world axis is Uwaz, sometimes it's pronounced as, or Awaz. And that is the rune of the world axis. And I'll draw it with my hand, but it has a hatch that comes up. And then you have the pole that comes down, and then the other hatch goes upward. So you kind of have the canopy, the trunk, and then the roots down there. And so we've also talked about the spine quite a bit. This rune also relates to the spine. It can be corresponded to the spine, which is our sacred center as well. This is also a rune like of initiations and like initiations towards the secrets, towards the secret wisdom. And that we are dealing with the secret wisdom right now when we talk about this. These are hidden esoteric things that are not talked about very quite often, but it is so crucial to life. And this rune kind of emanates that. This rune is also looked at as a hunter rune or a huntress rune because it's associated, with the yew tree, which typically bows are made of yew wood. And the other god that is associated with this rune is the god Uller. Uller is the hunter, and Uller rules the winter. And so there's that other kind of like northern cold energy that I think of, which is also associated with Isa, which is just the straight line, which is the ice rune, which also I look at as like a central pillar rune. But the Iwaz is definitely corresponded to that. This is also kind of like a shamanic journeying rune, which we're talking a lot about that too. We kind of talked about that more in the beginning. We're going to the realms. Mercury's taking us to and from. also to the yew tree, the needles are classified as poisonous, but it's not necessarily poison, but it's a hallucinogenic that can come through when it's heated. So there's all these things that kind of came through that I wanted to bring to the table with this. And if I could segue just a second back to the raptor and the hunter medicine and how that could be medicine. I'm gonna go there, but man, we've been on this urine trip, man, and that is the hunter. That urine hunts inside of you for the things that need to be healed. And I think that could be connected to the eagle as a hunter and as Awaz and as the world tree of this being a missing link to something that could be one of the most healing medicines that we create for free. And we create it every day, multiple times a day. And so it's just been a huge epiphany moment for both of us. But I think that could be something to think about as well with like an eagle or being a hunter, and that the urine is a hunter too.
It's liquid gold.
Straight up.
That's our opinion these days. So it's been a little while, but even gold symbolism relates to the emperor and the king, and the eagle relates to Zeus and Jupiter and all sorts of stuff. So I think there's definitely something to that.
Yeah.
I tried to type into the chat that Iwa's rune looks like a snake, but YouTube rejected my comment thinking it's spam. I don't know why. Maybe it thinks I'm bullying. I don't know. But that rune looks like a S or a snake, and it has that idea of immortality and initiation. The serpent initiates into wisdom. The serpent is a symbol of the immortality with the shedding of the skin. I'm going to have to go back, though, and listen to that Healing Home episode about Shambhavu. Is that what that's called? The urine therapy? You're selling me on it. Oh, muted you too. There you go.
Shivambu, if it didn't pick that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really fascinating rabbit hole. It took us a while to get around to wanting to even try it. But now that we're there, I mean, it seems like it's one of those things. It's a paradigm shift for us personally. What my understanding of the human body, which is limited compared to a lot of other people. But once we started this journey with urine therapy, with Shivambu practices, it has opened up so many different things. It really is incredible. And it seems like it's exactly one of those things that, you know, other sort of entities or forces or bodies wouldn't want you to know about because it's free and you produce it. No one's making money off of it. But it's a really ancient practice if you can get past, you know, maybe some of the, icky feelings you might have with that. But I think it's an amazing thing. And so Michelle's interviewing another woman here pretty soon. Excuse me, you interviewed her already, Megan McDonald.
Yeah.
But you guys are going to do another episode about it.
Yeah.
Everybody says that it's legit, and nobody is like, I tried it and it sucked. You know, it's
That's
it's a one-way street on the conversion to that, from what I can observe.
Yeah, I've talked to a few people that like they've maybe dabbled or they did it once or twice, but most people, it's like they're all in once they try it, because you realize a few things very quickly. So anyway,
nice.
Yeah, the
Sweet
golden
tangent.
thread.
Yeah, the golden waters.
So I got a strange weave that I just want to put on the record, because you mentioned urine therapy, and I've just discovered what I'm calling the unibooger in my project. The number 6 on my project. This is Slick Dissident exclusive, but the number 6 has a personality type of a loyalist with a shadow of fear. The 6th prime number in the Greek symbols is mu.
Gabe,
Okay.
you're
Am I here?
froze.
Did they get me?
Yeah,
Sorry
they
about
got
that.
you. Okay, you're back.
Am I okay?
Yeah, we got
Did it come back
the
to-
prime number is the
Okay,
Greek
okay.
mu.
Thank you. Yes. So this mu, the lower case, has a very unique shape, and its shape has a booger dripping off the end of it. And I believe that this is a long-running gag throughout scholasticism going to the ancients. And in my project, I've profiled this booger to be Slimer. And so the booger on the end of mu is eliminated by triskaidekaphobia, the fear of the number 13. And they inseminated that into the Ghostbusters storyline. And so as of just recently, this entire 6 wing, it's making all the sense in the context of fear over germs and experimental, do I have a booger right now before I go up and give a speech, right? But now you're talking about urine therapy, which is kind of, I'm hearing the inversion, an inverse, where it's not I'm afraid of other people's germs, it's that I have intimacy with myself. This is maybe what the urine therapy is pointing at. And what is pinging for the Slick Dissident project is that the opposite of the number 6 is the number 3. Has a reputation of an achiever with a shadow of deceit, but it's also a healer, often is a doctor. It was a Euterpe, the muse of the sick, the muse sick, and she is a healer. And and my card number 3 is the art card now, because the third prime number is 5. She's card number 14, so she reduces to the 5, and she has a big onion golden shape behind her. I've seen this as the apple of discord that gets rolled in to kick off the Battle of Troy. I think the Battle of Troy was started over possessiveness. I think the letter S is the letter of ownership, the prop, who has the property, who does this belong to? I think the Battle of Troy was centered around ownership and putting your name on a thing, so now it belongs to you. I think that's what Helen experienced when she became property for the first time. And she enjoyed it. She accidentally enjoyed being property. And then she went back and told the other women, it ain't bad being property. I think the S is the apple of discord. And self-ownership is exemplified by urine therapy. You become your own source of riches. And that is an apple of discord that no economy can allow. You cannot be your own providence. And that's what I'm seeing in kind of running through the Slick Dissident project right now, that maybe this art card in the onion of that I thought was tragedy, maybe it's actually remedy. Maybe there's a cure here. Now that I've rearranged things, I just wanted to put that on the record, because that's pretty fun that you guys are into it. When I'm doing the green booger thing, you guys are doing the urine therapy thing. That's totally yin yang style. Yeah, I'm feeling that.
I got to put this on the record. This is watered down orange juice. That's all. Just putting that on the record. It's watered down orange juice.
This is vitamin C added to water. It's not pee. I'm not there yet, but I'm interested.
Cheers, Mario. Cheers, Michelle.
Thank you for sharing, Gabe. That was beautiful. Very
Mine is
interesting.
coffee. All right.
Mario put me onto this book, At the Center of the World by Jean-Michel. And in this book, there's many, many examples of European societies that revere as Mario puts it, they look at the pole star, they see all the stars moving around the pole star, and they say, if it's good enough for the gods, it's good enough for us. That's what Mario says very frequently. And they build their whole society and function out of it. This is Avebury in England. I've been there. It's a beautiful, beautiful, magical place. And wouldn't you know it, it looks like Mount Meru. It's got those 4 channels going in and out. And there's a stone circle. Not only that, the stone circles are occupying a portion of that, like what looks like the eastern part of this stone of this circle here, but it's a bigger encampment. So you could see there's the fractal pattern of circle and then another circle inside that circle. And there's the town hall in the center of that. This was the last slide before the actual trees. But if we were to take our hand glider and just nosedive right down to that first group of trees right at the very bottom of that right there, that would bring us to this next slide, Chance, if you will. This is the one on the left. That's this grove of beech trees, and that grove of beech trees, that's where J.R.R. Tolkien sat underneath those and gained the inspiration for much of his world and creation of the Lord of the Rings. So it's really, really interesting weave with this topic of the beech tree, because beech is pronounced in many Old English languages, Old Germanic, even Slavic languages. It's a variation of the word B-U-C-H, or B with a U and a couple of umlauts, C-H, book, beech. And as you can see over here on the right side of the screen, that's my son, Davide. He's holding a little tuning fork. We go out and tune the woods. There's this old growth forest. If you look closely at that, you can see it's carved on. This is the book tree. Book, beech. This is the book tree. And it said that Ogma, who is maybe a relative and a connection with Ogmios, maybe the same god, Celtic god of honey tongue, one that brought language and enchanted the followers with language, was said to have wrote the original language of the trees, which looks like it would be pronounced Oghem, O-G-H-A-M, or O-G-A-M, but it's actually pronounced Om. And it is with this language of the trees that was written on a beech. So the beech is the central library, the central pillar of that information. It's not the tree of life, it's the tree of knowledge. It's the tree of wisdom. And beech trees are, so that would be a representation of Liber Pater, of also the beech tree. Beech is, the genus of beech is Fagus, and that is the word where we get to like esophagus. It means eating. So there's a lot of food on the beech tree, and that's really one of the great medicines of the beech tree, is that people would recognize them not just for their ability to be inscribed and have temporal priestly messages, or even Davide was here, but also they would follow where the beeches were for the food, because the nuts of the beech were plentiful and able to feed not only people but livestock, and in particular like pigs. So this is the first medicinal tree, and I've been here before at this one in Avebury, and it's a magical place. You could see the examples of what looks like the serpents crawling up here. This is where you got also in particular the inspiration for Ents. There's no doubt when you're there. These are wishing trees. People are tying all kinds of ribbons on them, which is something actually that was an old Islamic custom, is tying wishes onto the trees and letting the wind kind of carry them up to heaven. And then Islamic changed a little bit from those days and banned that practice as I don't know what the word is, but yeah, very magical place. And here in America, we have the American beech trees. And when you are in an American beech forest, you can also see those similar snake-looking, serpent-looking roots. Lots and lots of writing and inscription. The beech.
I love that you brought up Ogmios or Ogma. I think before whatever it is that we call ancient Greek mythology, some sort of type of Hollywood of a earlier time. I don't know that it was even as described, like came from where we're told it comes from. But before they had their version of Hercules, the Irish Hercules, or the strong god, was this Ogmios character who conquered through eloquence. When you think about it, what conquers a people more effectively? Words and narratives, or force of arms? Because if you try to force with strength, physical strength and dominance, they fight back. But if you say the right words, they'll dance to your tune. If So I think that that's really a great weave to bring into it. And when I'm talking about the world tree, the world is world from words. You know what I'm saying? And where do we put our words? We put them on the paper, papyrus, things that come from trees. Really important part of the whole conversation. And words can heal. Talking about medicine as well. You know, words don't just conquer, but heck, I say it all the time, but like, I think 90% of the job with biofield tuning, and from my perspective, is just being really persuasive, persuading people to giving them the right storyline that helps them shift their perspective in a way that they feel the magic of it and they feel persuaded about it. And it's not just, you know, there's the energetic investment and that's what makes it effective. I think persuasion is huge. What do you think about the beach medicine though? Like what kind of medicinal qualities does this have as a plant ally?
Well, it definitely stands out as a food, but all trees in general are going to have an astringent quality. They're all going to possess a form of tannic acid or tannins. And something that's really important is the foundational action of astringency. So if we think about foundational actions of things that we could discern with our senses, we can tell something is aromatic. We could tell something is slimy and demulcent. We could tell something it might be relaxant by its flavor, or stimulating by its flavor, or bitter, of course. And all of these things have keyed-in actions to our physiology. But the flavor of astringency is the flavor that pulls back to itself. When you taste something from a tree, and all of these trees basically are going to possess this form of pulling tissues back to itself. My best example of that would be like an unripe banana, or really dry wine, or tea that's been steeped too long. When you drink it, it almost makes it like, you can't even lick your lips or your teeth, you know, it's just like so dry in your mouth. Well, that's taking the fluids in your body that might be leaking and escaping, we could say in a spiritual way, escaping away from the center, but we can also say it in a physical way, leaving the body, letting somebody be more dry, and pulling and toning those tissues back together. So typically the beech leaf would be a preparation that you would take the leaf and you can make the juices of it. You could crush it or pound it, or boil it in some water and apply that to lesions like ulcers or blisters, or places that are expressing that tissue that it's, you know, leaking. There's many examples of working with, let's say, loose gums or things like that. And there's some trees that are better for these things, but beech will be really good applied externally. I think the best medicine of the beech is what you just said, though, is in the word, is in the textiles that it provides. It's a hardwood, and mainly for the food.
Michelle, you got any thoughts to weigh in on? On medicine?
I remember.
Oh, Gabe's got one. Okay, you got it, buddy.
Go for it, Gabe.
Then Michelle.
I'm not too familiar with medicine of the beech, so I'm kind of learning and listening here on that one. But thank you.
Nice. Well, I do remember from our weaves in the past, formulating the value of betrayal. And I think we were in the season of Scorpio when we did that weave on the beech and brought it into the context of betrayal. But I want to point out that betrayal we have a stigma or a presumption of negative detriment. But betrayal can just be a glimmer in your eye, betrays your intent. When Odysseus comes back to his kingdom, his servant is washing his feet, and she sees a scar that betrays his identity. And he entrusts her not to betray him by giving up his identity. And so there's a trust that intrinsic to a scar in the story. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that betrayal and even like, telltale indicators. All of these are actually ways of reading the tea leaves of people's behavior. And it even goes down to the glimmer in their eye. That's another ingredient of the epics, is that only the sovereigns have the placement of mind, the acuity to even note a glimmer change in the eye of another person, of one of their guests. And so that is a betrayal. And then all of the beach trail is another metaphor that I love to play around with, because I do believe that life is a beach and you find wonderful things on that beach, especially in the midst of the crises. All right.
Beach being a liminal space between land and water. So it straddles two different realms, and then the beach having that kind of relationship as well, that beach tree, right?
That's a good one, man. Whenever you're unmuting, make sure you give yourself a second for your internet to catch up, because we missed the first word or two, but we got the gist. Yeah, beach, liminal space. Good weave.
Epic weave. Pine, spine. Pines are spines. I threw in you know what? I forgot to mention in the Om. It's not the main language, but they tacked on a few letters afterwards in beach. And the beach is like, it looks like a crook, looks like a shepherd's crook. It's going back to the shepherd, going back to the hermit, going back to the staff, all of those types of things. That's represented also in the character of the beach. But pine, this symbol that you see right there, that is the symbol of the pine in the Om, which I always want to say Ogum, but I'm going to say Om because that's a brilliant word, really. And that is the numerical value of 1. That is Ailm, AILM, which some people think that is represented or corresponded to the elm tree, but I think it's actually a really good case could be the pine. And why? Because the pine is straight. It is evergreen. It's that particular character represents peace. Pine is often represented peace. There's the Appeal to Heaven Revolutionary War flag, which is the Revolutionary War flag. And then this other flag right here, this is the flag of Maine from like 1906 or something like that. One of the things I find very cool about this flag is we have our central channel, we have the pine, and we have the North Pole, the Polaris star up there too. Pine is depicted in the court of the Vatican right there. There's even a passage in Dante's Inferno where he describes going down to the depths and seeing Nimrod and describing that his head is as big as the pine cone in St. Peter's court right there. So it's just massive, massive pine cone. So that means Nimrod must have been huge, right? But anyway, back to the pine. There's plenty of symbolism of pine, the spine, the upright, the evergreen. But as far as the medicine goes, I mean, this is a medicinal tree all around. We have the needles of pine, which are excellent anti-inflammatory. You could boil them, you can make a sun tea with them. Back in time, I used to say that they were like antimicrobial and anti blah, blah, blah. I would list off all the things that nobody wanted, right? Like fungus and bacteria and all those things. And then I changed my worldview on that. And I realized actually those things are healing, or they don't exist. Or they're just portions of a cycle of our healing. So pine helps activate that cycle of healing, setting things back to the state of the proper terrain. The number one, right? It brings things back to number one, brings things back to a place of peace. The pine needle, really high in vitamin C, they say. And so I used to say that too, but I don't even know if vitamin C is real. But let's just say they're really high in all the good stuff. The tree is also a source of food. The pine nuts, of course, can't make pesto without pine nuts. Sure you can, but not in Liguria, you can't. And so, yeah, there's some food, there's some medicine. You get turpentine, which is an excellent medicine. I must say, I really enjoy the anti-parasitic qualities that the distilled spirits of pine resin, 100%, not the crap that you buy at Home Depot, but like distilled pine spirits, 100%. That has on our body. I mean, it really does kick out parasites. What are parasites? They're things that, I mean, maybe they're physical things, but they also could be spiritual entities as well. I mean, it all starts in the spiritual realm, so it works on all of it. Let's see here, pine, turpentine, and then it's a textile. It's an amazing textile, of course, building material. Everybody who's in a building right now probably is surrounded by pine in some way in their walls or something like that. So yeah, this is, I mean, to me, I definitely see not just pine, but all evergreens as stand-in for the world tree. We could say cedar here, which is very, very sacred to the Anishinaabe people, not just in my area, the Great Lakes area, but also the Western red cedar, which is what they make the totem poles out of. I mean, if we're talking about world tree symbolism and we don't mention a totem pole, which is that central pillar of that everybody prays around. It's at the center of town and it represents family tree and everything like that. We have the fir tree. We have the Norway spruce that made the Stradivarius guitar or violins. I mean, whenever I think of evergreens, we could think about, we could say pine. That's what we say in the Midwest. We call all evergreens pine trees, but I also think that they would all work as a stand-in for this number one, that I am the pine, right? That's all in that letter right there.
Yeah.
I just noticed something for the first time about pine. I'm realizing that this is probably should be added to the list of phoenix symbolism, because the palm tree is typically associated with the phoenix. It has this quality of seeming to regenerate itself without going dormant. And so it has like an eternality. It's a serpent related symbol as well. And the pine fits right in. And like looking at the way pine is spelled, I can't believe I'm just now noticing this, but if the letter P or P is interchangeable with the PH or the F sound, then the PINE is also the phene, the phoenix. It's a phoenix tree. It totally fits that symbolism. And then even the third eye, pineal third eye symbolism of the pine cone, that's where your rebirth happens, is in the third eye.
It doesn't germinate unless the pine cone catches on fire. It needs to have fire in order to make a pine forest.
Oh my God, it's the phoenix tree. This is the real phoenix tree. It's the most phoenix tree of all phoenix trees. You're blowing my freaking mind. And then pinus and penis, of course, someone mentioned that in the chat. The virility of pine pollen and all that. And then that's the generative power as well. Like the third eye is the generative power of your mind. There's a lot to this, but I saw a question from Liam. He wanted to know if all pine needles are the same or safe. I'm guessing they're probably not all exactly the same, but they're probably all okay to like make teas. What are your thoughts on that? That's everyone's first question when they're, considering plant medicines, is like, what is there anything that I could hurt myself with or that's not safe?
You know what? I heard that there might be one in the desert Southwest. It's not the pinyon pine, but maybe it's the ponderosa that has like much higher alkaloids, but that has a much more medicinal resin. So the resin can be used for, application, external application. The resin of pine is, I didn't mention that either, but that's another amazing property of pine. So I'm going to say, look it up, because I'm pretty sure the answer is yes, but I think that there might be just one that they don't. So, and it's something that is all around the the plane, this realm, pines. You'll find them all around. So pretty sure they're all interchangeable for this medicine that we mentioned.
Yeah, this is awesome. There's a lot of things firing off in my mind too, with the fire element. And the resin, the resin can be used as a fire starter if you needed it, in the wild. And then your Om symbol there, that's also the Nathi's rune, which is associated with fire. And it is also associated with, it's the need. It means need. It's necessity. So this pine tree is a necessity to have in a community for food, for medicine, for sustenance, for a symbol of solidity, of just a pillar in general. But that element of fire, there is some Germanic background to it, and their look at the Nathi's rune translates to what they would call, quote, the need fire. So they would light a need fire at the cross-quarter holidays, so the solstices, the equinoxes, and then they would also light a need fire when there was need. So if they were going through hardship, or there was some sort of time where there was a drought, or there was just illness within the community, they would have two young children, one boy, one girl, light a need fire across from each other, where there'd be a section that was clear of fire, and they would herd cattle through the two fires. And this was just a symbol of prosperity or abundance. And it's like creating a channel of energy through the two fires. And then it would also be a symbol of fertility for the two children. So there was also fertility rites, fertility with pine, fertility with Nathis. So that's another thing that as soon as I saw this slide, I saw that symbol and I was like, it's Nathis. So it's interesting that that's coming through. Interesting that the fire element came through for you as well, Chance, because it's totally all there with that. It's pretty cool.
I wonder if what you're talking about relates to the Neath of Neathog or Needhog.
Ooh, I'm not sure.
I also wonder too if that rune, maybe you mentioned this earlier, but the two lines crossing representing fire sticks, if it has to do with fire, right? Yeah. A couple things I'll add to the weave here is just the fact that pine has in right there in the middle of the word. And when you look into circumambulation symbolism and rotation symbolism, what I've come across, and to me, it really seems like this is definitely the correspondence. Clockwise rotation is expansive and solar. Counterclockwise rotation, like the fixed stars, like Ursa Major around the pole star, is contractive and polar. And so basically, you go towards the inner portion of anything that you're revolving around symbolically if you go around it counterclockwise versus if you go around it clockwise. So there is a polar dynamic here. Polar symbolism has to do with going back towards that center, essentially, instead of expanding away from it. So I think it's really interesting that we have clocks that are, going clockwise, and then there are 12 numbers on it, which is a solar number, right? So even that correspondence with our everyday clock, that's a solar paradigm. That's a solar-based system right there with just that clock. And so just the fact that it has in right there, I think is interesting. Also, regarding the third eye, this is the eye of providence too. The eye of providence being a triangle with the eye, right there in the middle. And I've done several presentations at this point linking that eye and linking that pillar in Freemasonry. There's a central pillar that usually has the eye of providence on top of it, with being a polar based symbol. And so a stellar primordial symbol. So I think that's kind of interesting as well. The other two pillars being lunar and solar, that central pillar representing this older age, this polar age, in my opinion.
So I've got some gravy on the Phoenix, which was a topic we touched on in the Loki series recently, because the phone rang 9 times, and we realized after our last demystifiers that phone 9 spells the word phoenix. Phone IX is literally spells out phoenix. But the Phoenix constellation is a winter. It's in the winter time. It's at the runoff of the Eridanus River. It's right next to the goose, the Grus, which is Zeus. If you change the G to a zeta, it becomes Zerus. And Zerus used to get down in all kinds of bird shapes. But Phoenix is right next to it. And I think we're seeing a lot of, like you said, Chance, the palm tree is, I think that's its phylum. The phylum of a palm is a phoenix. Might be it's some other category. But there's a phoenix on the shield of this emperor. And his one-leggedness, is many, many, many things. But one thing I think about is this rubbing sticks together to start a fire, like we were talking about. But also, one of my discoveries is that it has to do with the rubbing sticks as a musical instrument. And so the ripples of sawing and the sound of saw, like it's musical. It is also used musically. So I just wanted to kind of put those things into the context of in Capoeira, we call it a hekel, is the name of the scratchy stick instrument. Which I'm actually in the market for. I think I'm going to build my own hekel. And then one more topic, Mario, I just wanted to share with you. There's actually a controversy in Capoeira as to the ceremony. Some groups walk clockwise, other groups walk counterclockwise, and it's whoever has home court advantage style.
Gotcha. I think I got most of that. That is really, really interesting that you say that. Another angle of this, it means that if you're going counterclockwise, the point of pivot is on your left. So there's a left hand sort of path aspect related to this internal sort of thing versus this externalized thing. And then if you're going clockwise, that means that central point of pivot, that central totem is on your right hand side. So it has a lot to do with what side you believe the totem should be on and symbolically what that represents and everything else. But that is fascinating. I've heard the same thing with other groups and their rituals and ceremonies and stuff, that either it flipped over time. It also has a lot to do actually with if you're trying to invoke yin versus if you're trying to invoke yang. That's another aspect related to this.
Okay, doke. Let's see here. The oak. The pine represents like a more primordial tree, and even like the Bach saga, I think, talks about how the pine was developed from the palm, and years and years and years and years later, the oak tree comes along. There's an old. I came across this myth, this Irish myth that was boiled down to a long time ago, our trees were straight and then they were crooked, which is to suggest that at one point, Ireland was all pine trees. And then whatever types of cataclysmic events shifted and changed and allowed some of these more southern trees to come up, these deciduous trees, crooked trees. And then, didn't take long for the Celtic people and the Proto and Indo-Europeans to recognize the sacredness of the oak tree and be synonymous with the worship of it. So this is where we get the oak tree, and the ohm is dur, and the word this is where we get the word door. And it actually makes me think about this biblical quote, which is Jesus is saying, "I'm the door, and you have to enter through me, and you'll be saved," right? And if you go out, you'll find pasture. When I hear that, I think about an oak savanna. I think about the pasture that's out that the oak trees are standing in as like standing pillars of community for all of the animals. But we have the word door. This is where we get the word durable, which is synonymous with oak's strength. It's where the word doer and deru are synonymous, and that's where we get the English word true. So the word true is also synonymous with the oak tree. There's, of course, many lightning gods and thunder gods associated with the oak tree, and the reason why is because it conjured their attention. The oak tree was struck by lightning more than any other tree, with the exception of the locust tree. But some people say, well, that's because it's the tallest one, and maybe that's true. But other people say, no, it's because the the thunder gods looked upon it as the most favorable thing to strike, and also because it wouldn't burn up. It would be able to absorb the strike or just lose a limb. And then others yet still say, and the descendants of the Druids say, it's because the roots, which are mirror representations of what we see above ground here, are going down into finding little streams of water. So the potential of the sky is trying to discharge itself into the earth through the water underneath the oak. The oaks are looking for that water. So because of that, the oak is synonymous with Zeus and Jupiter and Thor, doer. I mean, it's the same word, right? And even drawer, carpenter drawer. And as far as medicinal actions go, we could put it in the context of astrologically. We could say, some people say, Jupiter, obviously, abundance. There's lots of acorns, and but a lot of the astrological herbalists say, no, this is a tree of Saturn. And the reason why, and to me, it's emblematic of the battle between Zeus and Kronos. We have acorns, Kronos, corn, but also the oak tree is the tree that wants to hold on to its leaves the longest. It doesn't let go of its leaves, and it doesn't get so excited to push them out in the springtime either. It's very slow and holding on to things. It's got that signature pattern. And to me, the medicine of the oak tree is the staple of astringency. It is a great medicine for the spleen and spleen qi. In Chinese medicine, spleen qi represents the thing that holds stuff together, holds my organs in place. It holds my mucus from falling out, all that type of stuff. It holds up the pelvic floor and keeps our tissues nice and tight so that blood and fluids can move through them, and they're not damp and soggy and everything dripping out, stagnant with disease. And oak bark as a tea is an incredible medicine for the spleen, for swollen spleen, for people who have injured or having swelling with their spleen, which is a lot of times related to alcoholism and drunkenness. And the homeopathic remedy is specific for that. I also see this as an archetype in the biofield anatomy. And one of the projects I'm on right now is making archetypes of the patterns that are the energy centers in the biofield anatomy. And this is the left knee. The left knee is the one is what Eileen McCusick says the devil that we deal with, and it is always looking for that containment. And so this is the archetypical container in itself as a medicine. So I find that this is a really nice archetype for that particular part of the biofield anatomy. And as far as where astrological herbalism goes, it's the botanical name of oak is Quercus. And so I always think Aquarius, Quercus, it's clearly Aquarius, with its lightning, with its ability to hold things in, with its favorness of the sky. And so lots to say about the oak. I'm just going to drop off and turn it over, see what y'all have to say. I know that we're getting late here.
I got something. This is really fun. I miss you guys. I totally miss you guys. I love that you mentioned that this is the origin of truth. This is the, where the word truth comes from. Let's just imagine, maybe the wokers, the woke crowd have been struck. They've been struck of truth. I've just recently replaced my Socrates card with the dancer because she's card number 17. 17 is the seventh prime number. So now Socrates is Euterpe. No, excuse me. Socrates is the star card, just like you said. And the seventh deity is Zeus, who is the lightning bolt. So I think there's something to be said about the woke crowd being enthused. They're enthused by the truth. So the lightning bolt of Zeus has enthused the woke crowd. And I just want to put an interesting opposite, or maybe it's not really a false dichotomy, but it is something to think about, is the opposite of a woke truther who's just now is the new vessel for an inspiration that has them driven. Maybe the eventual, I don't know, the opposite, let's just say opposite, it's oversimplifying, is nihilism. I just learned that the old word for nihilism is just as simple as cultural exhaustion. Cultural exhaustion. This definition of the word nihilism explodes in my brain 1,000 ways, because now we're developing a culture vilifying exhaust. Climate change is fueled by people thinking about exhaust, and our culture is being exhausted on itself, and it's breeding a certain nihilism. And so I want to say that we should maybe encourage the woke to woke some more, so we could keep on woken and staying inspired. Because the other end of that runoff is some sort of weird exhaustion with your culture that they call nihilism. And I just think that's so fascinating, because I heard that I was like, yeah, I'm fucking culturally exhausted. But then I was like, but I'm no fucking nihilist. I'm no nihilist. I'm enthused every day. I'm getting struck by Zeus every 5 seconds. So I just wanted to kind of put those thoughts out there, because my dad, he said to me a couple weeks ago, he's like, I never knew what woke really meant. I thought it was a good thing. And I was like, oh, tell me about it. He's like, yeah, it turns out woke isn't as cool as I thought it was. I was like, tell me more. um, but there's a part of me that didn't want to discourage him. It was like, you know what, whatever that was, do it again. Wake it back up. Woke it back up again. Let's get marching, y'all. So I just wanted to say that about cultural exhaustion and staying inspired.
Dude, that's a fascinating definition of nihilism, because not only is exhaust vilified on the environmental scam side of things, but just the nature of how our society runs is like, stay awake, stay alert, one form of consciousness only. The coffee vibe is the most and only acceptable vibe. Exhaust is vilified. You're not off at your desk at your office, you're in trouble. You fall asleep during class, you get the ruler slap on the desk. It's the thing. That's the thing, man. And that grind and the vilification of exhaustion does lead to nihilism, because if you can't have the balance of relaxing with the alertness, and the way that Eileen talks about this, McCusick, the way most people's version of awake is they're tired but wired. And like that phrase just defines the cause of nihilism, because when you're tired but wired, you're just like, I don't care about this. I'm just going to get through it without, with minimum effort possible, minimum attention possible. I think that's the ultimate sign that you need some grounding and you need to just take a chill pill, is if you're tired and wired. Those things do not go together at all. Good weave there, Gabe. I'll take us into the next slide unless we got more.
That's good. Let's do it. I can hurry up a little bit. Speaking of wired, this is the negative polarity to oak. Oak being sacred to Thor, this one being sacred to Freya. So they have like this that had been, the oak is like flexing like masculine Thor, right? Which way is the beach? Get it? And then and then here's linden. Tilia is the botanical name, and we covered this one in the cancer AstroHerbalism of cancer. So I'm going to say, make a note, go to the playlist on Chance's channel after this is done. Go look at the one on cancer, because we talk a lot. We have this great weave on it. And the reason why is because this is a basket tree. It's for weaving. This is what this tree is all about. But in context of the world tree, this stands in really, really strong in Germanic cultures, Northern Germanic, Northern Europe. And they give it the name Gerixklind. I don't know how to say it. Gerixklind, which means, if you put that into your translator app on whatever Google Translator, it'll translate it as judiciary. Lind is the tree. Geric is the law. So this is the tree, just like oak was the law tree. The Druids were the lawgivers. They were the ones that were in the court of the rulers as well. But this one is the polarity. So this one is more about this Venusian, Freyan dance merriment. So another name of it is Tanzlind. This is an example of a Tanzlind. So, I mean, one of the points that I'm trying to make about World Tree is these are examples of trees where people come together. They come together. They come to celebrate their festivals and strengthen the bonds of their culture, to intermarry and go back out into the periphery of that circle. It's where they come for the reinforcement of their law, their customs, their market. Think about all the people on the outside of the periphery bringing in the stuff to the market underneath a shady tree like this. So inside of this tree, there's a dance floor, and they circle around it. And there's some great videos on YouTube of the Tanzlind. And of course, as far as like medicine goes, man, linden is so great for the lungs. It's so great for communication. The flower this is one of the reasons why it's like really valuable in these cultures and why they planted it, even in Rome, is because the smell of linden and the flavor of linden, when you taste it, it softens your words. It softens your tongue. So you could say guilty, we're going to hang them, but it doesn't have that same jarring aspect. You know what I mean? It can soften the way that it's like that, going back to Ogmios and the honey tongue, the way that words can stick, and how you can sway people with your words. This is a tree that bees love, and it's really popular, the basswood honey. I think it's another thing to mention too, as far as like the lungs. We were talking about that in the context of cancer, and how things are both soft and protected and hard. We're talking about the rib cage and all these places that linden would be grateful or really helpful for. But one of the things that I think is really cool and worth bringing up again is that the flower looks like a boat. And it looks like there's like this leaf that's a boat, and then the petals come off of that as if it's like people inside of an ark. That's what the flowers look like to me. They look like little arcs that fall from the sky next to like shortly after the solstice in the sign of Cancer, which is perfect. It's perfect for Cancer, but it's also great for all of the medicine in the world tree. It's a really, really beneficial one for these. And as far as like textiles go, like I said, once again, baskets, weaving, fences, things that you want to be able to move in and out, and then as they dry, they become hard. So, Gerxlind.
Excellent stuff, man. I have to add a few things regarding this connection to law and the judiciary sort of process and things like that. Several authors have noted that the world axis really relates to power, authority, and the law as well. Because it's the central point of pivot for a community, it brings stability, it brings structure. And so obviously there's people all over the world have believed that one way to get stable and for things to be structured is to have laws. And oftentimes the laws were given out in the central point in that region, or in the central point of that kingdom or village or whatever. Chance and I, we talked about the kingdoms and emperors and kings and how they relate to crosses and stuff, and it relates to the image that you showed earlier with that central point in the middle, and then the roads going north, south, east, and west, and everything else. So it would make sense that if you're going to hand out laws or even have trials or festivals or whatever, that you would do it at a centralized sort of location. And sometime last year I learned that in some Islamic circles, esoteric Islamic circles, that Libra wasn't viewed actually as a pair of scales. It was actually viewed as a pillar. And so I did a presentation called The Axis of Libra, and I make the case that the vertical axis of the scales is the basically sort of the middle pillar. If this system, if you look at scales and you have one thing that's weighed against the other, one pan might represent a left pillar, the other pan might represent the right pillar, or one is solar, one is lunar. But there's that original axis in the middle, original axis that allows the whole entire system to function. And so I made the case that Libra, also being the middle sign, the central sign, relates to the central pillar, the middle pillar. And when I learned that there were some groups that didn't see scales, but they actually saw a pillar, to me that was really fascinating, because Libra has a lot to do with justice as well, right? And the law and things like that. So it's a whole deep weave, but the world axis and the pillar absolutely relate to some of these ideas as well. So just wanted to throw that out there.
I'll just move us right along. I like that you called back to the AstroHerbalism Cancer episode, though. Definitely need to look up that playlist. I'll just drop the playlist link in the chat in a second here too, so people can find it. Oh man, this is a mystical one.
Yeah, speaking of people, go ahead,
Kyle. Before you start on this, I want you to see. It's not really that visible, but behind me, I got this. I finally found a place to display this etching rubbing that you got from. Oh, you're the wrong person. See what I'm talking about?
Yeah, nice, dude. Yeah, that's the etching from the inside the temple of Angkor Wat, which we're looking at right now on the screen. This is a central axis. You have the creator God standing on top of the back of the turtle, and it's the the angels or the good guys on one side churning the sea of milk and honey, and the demons on the other vying for Vishnu's attention. This is also an Ophiuchus symbol as well, because he's got this. He's in the constellation. It looks like the positioning of constellation of Ophiuchus in the way that his feet are postured. But underneath it is the primordial sea, and this is the central pillar in this Hindu cosmology of churning things into existence. Yeah, nice, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, I really appreciated that you sent me that. It's such a cool gift, and finally found a really nice place to display it. It fits perfectly right there.
Yeah, one of the cool things about Angkor Wat is, this is a long time ago. I went there a long time ago, but you can make etchings off of some of these very, very famous murals that have been carved into the stone. And it's a really interesting place because of the trees, especially like these banyan trees. And you said the word people before I started, and this is also known as a peepal tree, Peepal or Peepul. And of course, the word people is also pole, and the eye of providence right on top, peeping out the pole. And another name for this tree is the peepala, or it looks like pipala. And I think it's a really, really, really cool symbol of the world tree. And another name for it is the tree of heaven. Here's the reason why. Because the birds will take the seeds and then they'll fly up to some unlucky tree and they'll eat it, and the seed will go through its digestive system and poop out on top of the branch, And this is how the tree begins. It starts growing as a root from the top of the branch of another tree, and it makes its way down into the ground. And when it does, it starts to kind of wrap itself around this host tree, and which is where it also gets the name strangler fig. So after a certain amount of time, that host tree has been strangled out, and the banyan tree is this expanding walking tree that comes from heaven with a central trunk that is hollow, that is empty, because the host tree is no longer there. So I'm just in awe of these trees. I went to Florida last October, and I was just so excited to see banyan trees all over the place. As far as medicine goes, I mean, like this mythical stuff. I mean, Bodhi tree. This is the tree synonymous with. There's many different species within the genus of ficus, which is the fig. But of course, fig. You know, we're talking about the Garden of Eden and everything like that too. But in Hindu mythology, it represents the Lord Vishnu is the trunk, Shiva is the leaves, and Brahma is the roots. So there's like this trifold thing. But as far as the medicine goes, this is, you know, going back to all the other trees, we could say they all have that astringent quality. They're all good for pulling tissues together and thus reducing the effect of inflammation on loose, lax tissues, toothaches, and so on, ulcers. But one of the important things about the tree of heaven is that it's got these analgesic qualities, which means it helps numb pain, especially from the leaf juice. So it's got this transcendent taking away from your painful state, but not necessarily shutting it off completely. It does so in the way that tannins and other compounds that the tree would help reduce that pain, pull it together. But yeah, not all trees have that analgesic quality, and that's one of the ones that makes this banyan Bodhi great. Yeah, sweet tree, huh?
I love that tidbit about it being hollow and the host tree. That's fascinating, man. I think I've heard that before, but the novelty has not worn off. That's incredible.
Can you help me understand what you're talking about of the hollow thing again?
Yeah, so I'm a tree. Bird comes and lands on my branch right here, germinates the seed. The seed doesn't start at the ground. The seed starts in the canopy, and it makes its way as a root down like a spear into the ground. And as it does, it continues to kind of wrap around itself, and then it will finally wrap around the host tree. And where that host tree has been now strangled out, and it dies and it decays, but the banyan tree lives on. And so the inside of that banyan tree is the hollow hole, just like our world tree, our world axis is. It's that still center.
Yeah, that is so interesting, because when you talk about Buddha finding enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, there's an alternate version of the story where he finds enlightenment meditating in a cleft of rock. So there's like the stone and the tree similarity. The same thing happens with Moses. He he goes to like a cleft of rock. It's an Ophiuchus thing, theologically, but that's interesting because there's like as the other tree dies, I wonder, does it like petrify eventually if a banyan tree lives long enough, or is that not a thing?
It just decomposes.
Interesting, and it just is hollow on the inside. Yeah, I'm just fascinated by the crossover. Really cool, good stuff.
Yeah, very cool. So a cleft of rocks would just be like an opening between rocks or something along those lines, a little crevice or something along those lines, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's been a while since I read Matheson talking about it, but now that I have my books right here, I'll show you.
Right, there you go. Because I'm just thinking out loud here, but I've read before that Twin Peaks, symbolically what you're referring to with Twin Peaks is there being a central peak, a central opening, a central sort of gateway, not unlike the twin pillars, and then there being a middle pillar there. So to me, the cleft between the rocks is basically the same thing, in between two peaks, symbolically, in between two pillars, being that central pillar.
Guys, get David Matheson's Star Myths of the World, volumes 1 through 4. I mean, if you are interested in astrotheology, it's comprehensive AF. The best. I mean, I like other books. Marty Leeds has got a really good astrotheology, Scripture in the Stars for biblical, but Matheson just goes all over every mythology. It's great. All right, olive. This is a powerful, powerful symbol.
A live, a laugh, a love, right? That's what it said at the Airbnb. The kitschy Airbnb. Yeah. Oh man, look at this olive tree right next to the Parthenon. I'm okay. I mean, the cultural symbols in reverence to these trees, they're all pointing to that center, that thing that ties the culture together. And we have the reverence of the olive tree in the Hebrew Bible. It's mentioned many times. Of course, olive being the thing that comes back from the dove, the dove returning with an olive branch. So it represents peace as well. We have a lot of instances of the Hebrew Bible we could talk about. I'm marking here clearly that this was the prize. This museum here now is the prize that Athena won for having the best dedication to this town. The town was thriving. I can't remember the old name. Probably do Slick. But the pantheon of the gods was like, we want some of that. So Neptune came in and he said, here's a spring. And he did the thing where he smacked a stick against the rock, just like Moses, but it came out as salty water. And they're like, oh, thanks for nothing, really. And then Athena brought olive. Sometimes it's a seed, sometimes it was a branch. In any case, it became a tree that produced fruit, that produced wood for shelter, wood for fire, that produced oil for fire, for the lamps. I mean, there's so much benefit to this tree. It's definitely symbolic of the survival of the culture. But I mean, look at this tree. It's so gnarly and old and mysterious. One of the things I love about the olive tree is how helpful it is for the heart. As far as medicine goes, the fruit is great. Brine the fruit and you get olives, right? And then everybody knows that olives are good. Everybody knows that olive oil is good for your heart. And we're still trying to figure out, if it's olive oil, even though it says it is, and all that type of stuff, but apparently the one that they sell at Costco that says it's olive oil is actual olive oil. But one of the things that I work with as an herbalist is the leaf. The leaf medicine is also a great cardiotonic. So I work with that for people who have, again, the lack of tone, the lack of astringency in the circulatory system. And that can lead to congestion, that can lead to varicose veins, that can lead to heart congestion, pelvic floor congestion, lack of energy, lack of movement of the blood. When what's inside, it's close to your channel, is nice and tight and firm. You're running like a nice engine. And that's what these trees, all of the medicine of almost all these trees provides. Particularly the olive, though. It's a good one for the heart. So there's Athens, named after Athena, because of the olive tree. And all of the medicine, the Holy Spirit of that's synonymous with the olive. Oh, here's another one. Oil, olea, just the word oil, and all the weaves that we could do with the word oil. Live and live, love, and yep.
So important to the Greeks, it's practically their name. The Greeks called themselves, they call Greece in Greek, Elene. And the word olive is like Elei. So it's practically, it's phonetically super close. And it's a great healer, I think. Olive oil, liquid gold, Homer called it. It's good stuff.
The fact that you
You know,
mentioned
the olive branch is a symbol of. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. Okay. All right. I'll go first. The olive branch is the symbol of truce or peace. Extending an olive branch is to bring things back to righteous again. Um, I have a phrase that I love. I think it's a Bob Marley quote, but it might be biblical in its origin. "'Tis a foolish dog what barks upon a flying bird." Uh, and that's an opening line to one of his songs. I think that this is hailing to a very awesome lesson from that I found in the Plato's Republic. And the story is um, what a foolish dog chooses to bark at the stone that was thrown upon it and not at the thrower of the stone. And that little story, that little parable is fascinating because the word "God damn it" in reverse is timid dog. And so there's something of a reversal of rage that is built into this of it's a foolish dog what barks at a flying bird, and what a dumb dog would bark at the stone that was thrown and not at the thrower of the stone. It's kind of comes back on you when you blaspheme in anger. When you say "God damn it," you're actually labeling yourself as a timid dog.
when you said foolish man, I immediately thought of the fact, or a foolish dog, rather. I immediately thought of the fool card and the fact that there's a dog on the fool card. And so some of what you mentioned there actually corresponds with the fool card in kind of an interesting way. But when Kyle mentioned Holy Spirit, I just thought about just the word whole and holy and holistic, and then literally the hole in the middle of the Taurus field as well, right? And so I think that the Holy of Holies has, in that way, the relationship there just etymologically with that center, the center of everything, you know. So once again, the temples having a Holy of Holies, that ultimate supreme sacred center within that space. I'm just going to throw this out there, but also the olive tree too. It got me thinking about, you know, the Middle East and everything else in Jerusalem and things like that. And I wonder if there's something to Palestine actually being Polistine. And then also, I think about the invasion of Poland, right, by the axis of evil. And so there's a whole entire weave there in the swastika relating to polar symbolism and things like that. So I don't know. I'll leave it there.
And back to Athena, what's her epithet? Palace. So you get the pole there too. There's a big weave in what you're asking, Mario, about the vilification of the pole or the pal, but it's beyond the scope of this. We should do a show about it. let's compare notes. I think there's a there. Well, we're on to the last subject matter here, and definitely not the least.
Just throw some shrooms up, you know. They grow with trees. These are the psychedelic kind, they tell me. But of course,
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, but right. Of course, they look like the tree. They have the canopy, they have the dome, they have the central axis pointing to the tip, the polaris, the pole. And these are particular types of mushrooms, these kind of cap mushrooms. They also are, one of the things that I thought about bringing mushrooms in is because they rely on this relationship, this mycorrhizal relationship with the roots of trees, or maybe it'd be better to say that the roots of trees rely on the mycorrhizal relationship with the mushrooms, chicken or the egg, who knows? Maybe James from Family Fungi knows, but in any case, it's like bringing up and returning it back to dust, bringing it up, returning it back to dust, that dust being spores, the decay that the destructive archetype of mushrooms, but also just as far as like mushroom trips go, the destructive aspect of unhealthy representations of the ego, one can say. And if you looked at the next slide here, Chance, this is just another example of a mushroom. This is a polypore mushroom. These are really common in my area. This is a type of reishi. It's Ganoderma eplanatum, these ones. And they grow as rings, basically, around the tree. So again, bringing in that relationship of destruction, breaking things down. One of the things I love about polypore mushrooms is that they also encode this realm, right? We have this dome-like that's attached to this central structure here. There's the ice wall around the edge. And it's one of the cool things, one of the sweet things about these Ganodermas is that you can go out and see them one day and then they'll be all covered with what looks like cocoa. What the hell? Why is somebody drinking cocoa out here and spilled their cocoa all over these things? Well, those are the spores. The spores are magnetically, they release from the bottom and they go whoop and up up to the top. They show that electromagnetic field, that electrostatic, what's up, James? Nice. That electrostatic field that goes from the lower to the top again. So those are the spores that are on top of the pores. Spores coming from the pores. Yeah, mushrooms. There's plenty to say about mushrooms, I know, but I think it's a really important thing that if we're talking about the destructive aspects of the tree, the anatomy of the tree, the snake that's nibbling on the tail, bringing things back to decay so that it can start over again. We got to talk about the mushrooms and how they're beneficial for that, and how they also medicinal. I mean, almost every these two particular mushrooms I found are great medicine. This is a great adaptogenic mushroom. It's really helpful for longevity. This is a cousin of the Ganoderma lucidum, which is the mushroom of immortality. This is the old, rusty Midwest cocoa reishi, as I call it. So maybe it's like the immortality of the redheaded giants that lived in Cahokia or something like that. But yeah.
Well, on the subject of the world tree in the center, the mushroom interests me in that where is the center of the mushroom? Because what we see, the fruiting body of the mushroom, is just one extension of a larger mycelial network, and there is no center of that network. It's all like one big distributed information and resource flow network. Right? Like every part of it is the center in a way, even what we don't see that's below the surface, right? Would that be an accurate kind of way to consider it?
Yeah, what you see is the fruit, and everything else is that network underneath, as you described. Yep. The unseen, the interconnected, that goes, that's connecting all life, really, everything underneath the soil. And maybe even providing that light of nature, that etheric light of nature almost like fluorescent lighting when you go into your shamanic journeying into the tree, into the underworld.
That's amazing with the spores, man. I've never heard that before. Absolutely incredible. I would never have thought that would be the case, but it makes a ton of sense. I wonder if people have, I don't know, recorded that or how that was documented or whatever, but I've noticed that sprinkling of cocoa powder, as you say, on top, and I'm like, how did it get there? And so that's fascinating. As the mushroom relates to the center, I'd like to bring up that the Hermit card, in some old versions of the Hermit card, the Visconti Forza is what I'm thinking of. It's from the 15th century. The Hermit actually has a mushroom head. He has a mushroom cap on, basically. And so he is acting as, a very phallic looking sort of figure. And the Hermit looks very phallic anyway. He's very upright, but he has hunched over shoulders. And as I mentioned earlier, he has that staff. He has that pole with him because he's a traveler. He also, in my estimation, it to me looks like the Hermit is probably an elder shepherd. He's an elder sheep herder. And so I think that makes a lot of sense for a bunch of different reasons. In that way, I kind of see him as almost being like an elder Christ, actually. And so the Hermit card corresponds with Virgo. Virgo has a natural relationship with the Virgin Mary, being the mother of Christ. In fact, when you see her in the heavens and she's holding that branch, that palm branch, that's a symbolic representation of Christ, the branch, basically. There you go. Yeah, that's it right there. And so the hermit is going through a solitary phase. He is going within, basically. So that is to say, he's going towards his center as well. So I think it's interesting that, the mushroom, and we're talking about center symbolism and the world tree, and that hermit card, I think, displays a handful of those sort of ideas right there. He is removing himself from society to get to that still point within.
And that's what mushrooms help you do, at least the
Yeah.
psychedelic ones.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
unavoidable to the inward journey that happens.
For sure. But good stuff, man. Thanks for sharing all this.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle.
Word up.
All right, Gabe, what are we looking at? You sent me this.
So I've been on a mushroom kick on the Slick Dissident channel.
We lost you. I'm sure you'll zap back in any second. Damn.
Am I good?
You're good.
Okay. So I'm doing the Enneagram Tarot project based on the prime numbers. I'm focusing on the prime numbers. So I've rearranged everything that got me this far. Everything that got me this far was a what I'm calling a Wittgensteinian bridge, a necessary speculative path. And I've thrown everything to the wind, and I've rearranged the whole project. And now the Hierophant is in the 9 position. He's at the top, the pinnacle, which is bringing 23 is the 9th prime number. And so 23 adds up to a 5. Therefore, I'm putting the Hierophant, card number 5, at the pinnacle to hold this number 23. Vanadium is the 23rd periodic element, and the Hierophant card is holding that V, the 2 fingers, the Typhonian 2 fingers. Jean-Claude Van Damme was doing a Hierophant ritual when he did the splits, riding between 2 remote-controlled semi-trucks. Both trucks have the word Globetrotter. I think that's a hail to Gurdjieff. But the ritual was embodying the Hierophant card because the Isis character between the legs of the Hierophant, particularly on the Thoth deck, I know that is the Eridanus River. And the word Eridanus is an anagram for the dancer. And Jean-Claude Van Damme is a damn ballerina. He's a literal ballerina. And so to have the dancer embodying the Isis character from the Hierophant card while doing the splits between 2 golden semi-trucks, look at the masks on the Hierophant card. It's the semi-trucks, the golden semi-trucks. They have a blank stare. The masks are empty-eyed. It's a perfect overlay onto the Hierophant. And it's so profound because vanadium is the key ingredient in Amanita muscaria mushrooms. I'm going to need another muscaria mushroom, y'all. I must be tripping if I think that Van Damme actually did the splits between those semi-trucks. Let alone if you think I still want to be on the road with motherfucking remote-controlled semi-trucks. No, thank you.
I want to say to what you just put on the screen that's weird. Are you familiar with Vanaheim, one of the 9 realms of Norse mythology, one of the realms on the world tree? Vanaheim, in some depictions of the cosmology is 2/3 of the way up the sphere of the worlds. So there's our 23. And the you know the story of how the Vanir and the Aesir exchanged hostages as a way to broker a peace, and that's part of how like Freya became Odin's wife. That whole like hostage exchange occurs in chapter 23 of the Prozata book Gylfaginning. So Vanaheim, Vanadium, Vanaheim being 2/3 of the way up the tree. It's there's some weird sync going on here. I don't know. Just thought I would put those fires on your log. There you go.
I don't know either, but there's a couple of patterns I'm also recognizing. If you want to pull up that slide, just real quick, one of them would be the Hierophant card is the 5th card of the major arcana, the Roman numeral 5 being V, vanadium, and then I believe is that the atomic weight 50, and so you got another 5 there, and then it being the 23rd, 2 + 3 = 5. So there's a lot of 5 stuff going on.
Drowning in gravy, guys. I think we're ready to wrap it up, though. It's been quite an awesome evening. Look forward to the next time we do an AstroHerbalism talk. You know, maybe we can get my new friend Katie Hess in for flower essences talk, and we'll just try to weave in astro concepts too, because I'm sure she'd probably like to talk about that. But yeah, you guys got any closing thoughts and you want to give some plugs? We'll just go around the horn, Kyle, and then the M's, and then to Gabe, and we'll finish her up.
Awesome night. I've been taking lots of notes. Feel like when I do this presentation in Colorado later on, it'll be really awesome amalgamation of all this stuff that you've helped me with. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be doing a live group tuning on my YouTube, Tippecanoe Herbs YouTube. And I'm going to be doing it while I make a flower essence of Angelica, which is a really, really special plant, also relating to the polar tradition. Inside stalk of Angelica is hollow. It is a plant that is revered as a world tree. It's called ground ash in Lapland, which is northern Finland. It's a lot of like world tree symbolism, but it's also, to me, a very special plant because it helps birth the placenta, which is something that, man, I wish we had Gabe. We didn't really, we talked about placenta once, but we really could have covered a lot more about placenta tonight, especially with the world tree. It is our world tree. You can just look down at the scar that's on your belly, and you can connect. We're not separated from the Garden of Eden. Just bring that serpent, that umbilical cord back up, sit underneath the canopy of your guardian angel, and be grateful and give thanks and honor that. And so tomorrow night, that's something that I'm going to be putting into this water, imprinting into this water through this magical plant, Angelica, which I have a really special relationship with. And also Angelica, named after Archangel Michael. We're talking about guardian angels. We're going to talk about the sword. We're going to be talking about a lot of that stuff. Super excited for that. It's the first time I'm doing a group tuning. Actually, it's not. It's the second time. The first time I did it, I actually tuned somebody out of the room right away. As soon as it started, somebody came into the room, and they had this bad energy. And it was a group, right? You could really feel it. And as soon as I struck the thing, they left, and I was like, whew, good. So it was really interesting. But I was able to go through the rest of the tuning and everything like that, but it was on my mind a little later. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to sabotage any other events by doing tuning. So I'm just setting it up as a group tuning. That's it. And I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited to be doing tunings too. And you can find stuff like that on my website. I've been doing some herbal tunings, and I've learned a lot from my mentor Chance over here to my left on the screen. And I'm so grateful for this group. I'm so grateful for Slick. I'm so grateful for Mario, Michelle. It's awesome rocking out with y'all. And it's good to be back. Really, really the previous year that we did a lot of the zodiac stuff, it really sharpened me up. It really kept me on the ball for learning about plants. And so I miss it, and I miss it in a studious way, but I also really look forward to connecting with y'all again in the future. And to the audience, thank y'all. I've been reading the chat tonight, and y'all are out of this world. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you to Chance.
Oh man, likewise, brother. You're a mentor to me, especially about the plant stuff, but just about like life goals, how to be a good dude. And you're right about the chat. We don't even have to moderate people. The vibe is just pristine. You know, we tuned everyone out of the room that didn't belong. Awesome. So Michelle, Mario, what's coming up for you guys? And I'll be there at the group tuning unless, you know, hell or high water prevents me, but I'm definitely going to attend that.
Yeah, so got a couple of things coming up. Before I get to that, just want to say thanks to everyone here. This is always a good time. I always learn a lot. You dropped some real gems tonight. Kyle, it's really cool to see you integrate this information with all that you do. And obviously, best of luck with the presentation. Chance, you're the host with the most. Slick, you're fantastic. I don't know. This is always really fun. My mind operates like in a different way when I'm here with you guys because you guys are top tier and quality weavers. I'm leaning into presentations right now, and the timing is kind of interesting because I just wrapped up 2 presentations, and they're a bit of a different format than what I typically do. So I'm actually doing them offline and editing them and everything else. I have a new camera that I'm working with, new equipment that I have over here. One is about the Pleiades, and this is coming from the polar tradition, primordial tradition standpoint, and the connection between the Pleiades and Ursa Major. There's a lot of symbolic overlap, and every Taurus season I can't not think about the Pleiades, and so that's an interesting deep dive. Just finished editing that one today, and then I also did a presentation that I'm ready to release here. Both of these are going to be released on Friday, by the way, about the full card, because I'm starting a new series called Symbolic Secrets, and I'm starting off by tackling the major arcana, and I'm going to go through each card individually, and I'm going to be releasing one of those every couple of weeks. That's going to be available on my Patreon, and so both of those will be dropped here in a couple of days. So check that out. You can find everything on my site, symbolicstudies.com. You can visit my YouTube, all sorts of fun stuff there, and I'll hand it off to Michelle.
Yeah. And just by the way, Mario's been in like an extra productive mode lately. So I am so pumped and proud of him and excited for him to drop all this new stuff. It's been really cool. So he's always productive. Drinking. Yeah, I know, right? We've been talking about that. He's always really productive, but it's been like next level. So it's very cool. But anyway, thank you, Chance. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Slick. Thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it. And just want to say, you know, I wish you the best of luck at the conference, Kyle. I look up to you as a mentor as well. I mean, life goals to be invited to a conference. So, man, kudos. I know you've been to that conference before and you've spoken there before, but I thought it's the first time you've spoken. Okay, so you were an attendee. Well, either way, just congratulations. It's really awesome. So proud of you, brother.
You deserve it, man.
Yeah, you do. So
I want the world to know about Kyle Denton, Tippecanoe Herbs for sure.
They will. They do.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah. So just to be a fangirl for a second. But anyway, fangirl for all of you guys. Thank you again. And yes, the Healing Home, michelleshealinghome.com. My newsletter, issue number 45, I'm dropping that tonight at midnight. So my new offerings are coming out. I am really excited to share what I've got coming down the pipeline. I've been working on these offerings for the past couple months, getting them ready for you guys. So you can check that out. I just did a Mugwort Musings episode yesterday on the Healing Home show where I talked about mugwort and some of the latest thoughts I'm having on it and its connection to Venus and me feeling as though there's like a stronger pull towards Venus versus the moon and kind of comparing those two and just talking about the Venusian qualities of mugwort. And that was really fun. So yeah, head to michelleshealinghome.com as it's on the screen for anything else. And thanks again, you guys. It's been fun.
Awesome. Yes, likewise. This has been a joy to be back with the crew. Kyle, you're going to blow it up, bro. You're going to blow it up. They better call in the reinforcements. It's going to be awesome. I'm so excited for you. Mario, nice beard, bro. Nice beard, man. You look so good.
I got
Yeah,
beard envy.
buddy. Looks really good. Uh, yeah. Just when I got rid of mine, it's like it migrated. um, one small gem on placenta. I sent a link in the Telegram to the InnerVerse Telegram group to a presentation on sacred trees and from a fellow that I love to watch. And then I sent also a screen cap of the moment when he talks about ligost berries. And apparently, ligost berries are used to extract the placenta whole and intact. I am calling these the whole ligost berries. The whole ligost berries are used to get the placenta intact. I think we're looking at a profound reveal. So I sent those links in the Telegram for anybody who needs a little placenta gravy on the side. And then in Slick Dissident channel, I generally take like a summer hiatus. I'm a couple weeks out, but yeah, I'm going to be a little hard to find just for through June and July. But I'll be back coming in strong through August, just in time for the Lust card season to fire off. So yeah, this has been wonderful. It's great to hang out with you guys. It's so nice to have the band back together again. Much love and respect to the chat.
Love it. Yeah, it's been super fun. You guys know the drill. Check the show notes for links to all these guys. Symbolicstudies.com, michelleshealinghome.com, Tippecanoeherbs.com, Slick Dissident on YouTube. And don't forget, I have a sweet affiliate deal with Kyle over at Tippecanoe Herbs. And if you get yourself some of his high quality medicine and use the InnerVerse coupon code, you get a discount. I get a kickback. You're supporting Kyle and his family and his awesome shop. It's a win-win-win-win. And I could say a lot more about how much I love all you guys, but I think right? I love you all so much. Everyone in the audience, thanks for being here. And we'll catch you on the flip. Till next time.